Being Tom Cruise, you start making fun of Tom Cruise.
Right.
It's like, well, we've all done that.
Yeah. Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined as always by the voice of Cinemasins, Jeremy Scott.
Yellow.
And from Music Video Sins, Barrett Share.
Howdy.
And today we're going to be talking about movies with that stupid premise, but are good.
Yeah.
You can find me in the club.
You should join our club. You and your friend.
Now, if you're not going to take this seriously, perhaps we should disband the club now.
I love being a part of things.
or underseen, or like all we've been doing so far.
It's our movie club.
It's our movie club again this time, but yeah, stupid premise.
Yeah. What do you think, before we start, what do you think of the concept of the Emoji Movie? Now that we've seen trailers for it and things like that.
I haven't seen a trailer.
You haven't seen a trailer for it?
I've only seen the one teaser, which had Stephen Wright.
Oh,
and,
really?
Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a full, like, what the story is yet.
Well, I think maybe I may be putting words in your mouth, but I think Jeremy and I were thinking maybe this is more than we think just on the surface. But then I saw a trailer and it looks horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it may be perfectly fine. It may end up being like the other ones that we're about to talk about. But like it's basically Inside Out, where the guy is only supposed to have one expression, meh. And if he emotes in any other way, he gets sent to like emoji jail, like the Inside Out like trash pile, basically.
Man,
and it looks awful.
Yeah, what you just described, fuck that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm on the fuck that train.
But Barrett, you came up with some interesting ones. I'm gonna see if I'm gonna debate these or not,
right.
Because you came up with some on your best. What did you come up with?
Well, there are some things that I think we could agree on as being the best, but it may be debatable. I would say the number one that comes to mind is the Lego Movie.
Okay.
I could see two sides of this, though, because when I first heard that the Lego Movie was coming out, I was like, God, really? Like, okay, that just doesn't make any sense.
Well, just like the Emoji Movie, right?
Exactly. It's a toy. What are you going to do with this? And then I thought almost immediately the other direction of saying, like, this gives you a canvas where you can really do anything with. And you could actually make this a practical, fun, interesting, funny story. And that's the way that they ended up going, thank God. But yeah, I mean, just the premise when you hear that is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's absurd. I mean, this is all, of course, from a child's mind and everything. And it's essentially The Matrix. Our buddy Couch Tomato did a whole video on it, but yeah, it is insane because it's this common Lego piece, this Lego man or whatever that is in every Lego set or whatever, can somehow find a way to be special in this whole group of commonality here. And it's got that it's no sillier than any other Hollywood blockbuster though, because he comes up with something that is a common tale, a guy who is chosen as the one, a prophecy, and so on and so forth. So,
but them not taking it so seriously is where almost all the humor is derived from.
Yeah.
You know, these over the top characters and their self-referential stuff, very similar to the stuff that Lord and Miller did in 21 Jump Street, which I actually have on my best list too, of a ridiculous concept, them winking at how ridiculous it is and parts of it within the movie, and that's where the humor's derived from.
So I guess a lot of this there is a lot of parody and satire that lends itself into these this type of genre or subgenre, if you want to go there. But yeah, I when this topic came up, I was sitting there thinking about it, and I started thinking of a lot of absurd movies. You would put The Matrix down, which I thought was interesting.
It is.
You call that a stupid premise?
Well, okay, so that was based on.
You want to fight?
Well, that was based on. I think it was. You were saying that your reaction to the trailer to the.
Well,
initial.
yeah, the trailer looked silly, but the trailer didn't spell out. I would argue it's not a stupid premise now that we've kind of gotten to an age where we can see a future where some of this shit might be possible. Not the world of the Matrix as presented by the film, but
Right.
humans plugged into computers and systems and whatnot. And I think we're going to get there one day. And then I think the movie lays it out well enough. Yeah, this is a difficult one for me to tackle. Part of the reason I didn't do any prep, other than forgetting about the fact that today was Thursday, is that I think you could call any superhero movie a stupid premise,
Mhm.
right? Kid gets bit by a spider, gets superpowers, swings around on webs in red tights, saves the day. Just on the surface, that's pretty stupid.
Yeah.
And I also thought of Buffalo 66. That's one of my favorite movies to describe in one sentence. I think I told this story on the podcast before, where my buddy Josh came home. I'm in the middle of watching this movie, and he's like, "What's going on so far?" And I was like, "Well, he kidnapped this girl, and she's pretending to be his girlfriend, but he's just left her at his parents so he can go murder the kicker from the Buffalo Bills." And the way that it came out of my mouth, we were all just dying laughing at what an absurd premise. But that's a watchable movie.
Yeah.
I would call that underseen.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm going to end up skewing more towards, I'm going to ignore the stuff like Lego Movie or animated films like South Park or superhero films, and I'm going to probably focus more on dramas and thrillers that just have a really stupid premise.
Right.
That is funny that you boil. Buffalo 66 has a lot of likability in it. If you can get on board with his character.
Well,
I
yeah,
guess.
and what about Buffalo 66 informs the fact that Vincent Gallo will end up doing the Brown Bunny later? They're completely different movies.
Yeah.
Buffalo 66 is an insanely watchable movie, and
yeah.
Brown Bunny is daring you to watch the movie, basically. But in my best category, there could be some overlap between best and favorite, as always. I put adaptation in my best category. You're talking about a really absurd premise here. The story goes, and I guess this is true, I've never really verified this, but Charlie Kaufman was tasked to adapt Susan Orlean's The Orchid Thief.
Right.
And the book doesn't have much of a story to it at all.
Right.
Or if any story at all. And so Kaufman, who is of course notoriously got weird screenplays and everything, decides to write himself into the screenplay and make the movie about adapting The Orchid Thief, which is an impossible task. And of course, one of Nicolas Cage's, this might be his best performance ever.
It's up there.
It is way up there, definitely.
Way better than the one he won the Oscar for in Leave It Las Vegas.
Oh yeah. And he's playing two characters very distinct from each other.
Yeah.
You can tell the difference by when one or the other walks into the room. But yeah, the whole thing is about the impossibilities of adapting this thing. So he has to make stuff up, which is, of course, it was the big thing in the trailer. Ron Livingstone's like make one up, and so they turn Susan Orlean into this she's in love with the guy who's the orchid thief, and they doing cocaine together and all this but the movie is just fascinating.
It is.
I mean, this is almost required movie watching, I believe. Every year you got to pop in adaptation and just sort of this is sort of the weird world that they live in. This this creation. There's all these rules as set up by Brian Cox that he has to ignore, and it's just a fun. If you went to tell this to somebody on the street, they would be like, "The fuck are you talking about?" And it on the surface, again, this isn't any movie that sounds like it's going to be something awesome.
Yeah.
But it's great. It is an absolute great movie.
Yeah.
That's a good call.
No, it's in the orchid, there's a drug in there, right? That gets you supremely high. Is that the end product of that? Because I remember there's a scene at the end.
I think it is. I think that's why he's collecting them.
Right.
And he actually, there's a point where he's going through the whole evolution of the orchid and all this, trying to come up with a story of it and everything. But yeah, I think that's what it is, because he ends up going. That's what Chris Cooper is doing in that movie. Is he's creating drugs out of it.
Right.
But
because I remember Meryl Streep at the end is just high as shit.
Yeah.
On the bed, just kind of on the phone,
Yeah.
Awesome movie.
Yeah.
Everything's turned on its head.
I know that I wrote. This could be in my favorites too, but I wrote Cabin in the Woods.
That's a good
one. What's another one?
I wrote Ironman just because it was such a stupid hero. Like you mentioned that you didn't want to mention superheroes, but this one in particular was a really stupid superhero thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. You again, you boil Iron Man's plot down to a sentence or two, it's going to sound really fucking ridiculous. Tony Stark built this in a cave from scrap parts. Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous. That shouldn't have happened, I don't think, no matter how smart he is.
Yeah.
So no, I agree with that one. And Cabin in the Woods is another good one because it plays with all these horror conventions, but what's really going on in that movie is utterly insane. Because you have to start with the premise that somewhere down underneath the crust of the earth is some kind of a god that enjoys watching teens get murdered and have sex. And he's very particular, super particular about the order in which things are done and which things the human workers have control over and which things they don't. So yeah, that's another good one. Not to mention that I think the weirdest thing about that movie is that grid that Hemsworth flies into, because I don't know how you explain that shit. But yeah, no, that's another one I would mention.
Now, I like how, and maybe there was more that I missed, but I liked how little marketing there was for Cabin in the Woods to tell people what it is. And that's why you probably had all those customers that came out or friends that were just like,
I had people,
man, fuck that. That's not a good horror movie.
I had people who worked in the theater who just did not understand it.
Yeah.
There's just a segment of the population who they can't accept things for being jokes or funny. So it says Cabin in the Woods, they're expecting a horror movie and they go in and they're, what is this bullshit?
Yeah.
It's got some horror elements to it, but it's all in good fun. And, so yeah, you had people coming out going, yeah, that was a piece of shit or whatever. And it got even to a point, there was one, we had a video, somebody was making for us one time, and they put Cabin in the Woods in a thing about cliches, and it was like, yeah, but the movie is making fun of those cliches. Yeah. We can't really put that in as examples,
right?
Unless you're just doing it like as a funny thing or whatever. But yeah, I don't know what it is, man. Some people just don't have that trigger where they don't know if it's serious or not. And but yeah, it's so obviously goofy.
Absolutely. It announces itself early, which is what I love
very
so
beginning.
Much about it.
The just the walk and talk dialogue, and then the sudden out of nowhere title that shows up on the screen. So you can't take that. You immediately, I can't take this movie for being serious at all. Really, I mean, there's some moments, but come on, get with the now, man.
One of my favorites that I definitely want to mention is Enemy of the State.
Oh, yeah,
nice. But everything about this movie is absolutely absurd. That this high-ranking government official guy commits a murder, that it's randomly caught on Jason Lee's nature duck cam, that he actually sees it, because there's got to be fucking days or weeks of footage from the duck cam, and he actually managed to see the 5 minutes where somebody gets killed. Happens to run into Will Smith and drop it. Everything about how this all starts is absurd, but the most absurd thing is the power and technology these government agents have at their fingertips. They can zoom from non-existent satellites down to shoelaces. And the surveillance demonstrated in this movie is not even technically possible today. And this was like 95?
Oh, Enemy of the State was like 2002, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
I went too far back.
I'll look it up real quick just so that we'll have
It's still pretty impossible.
I mean, yeah, and but it's so watchable. It's one of the most watchable movies.
1998, so we were in between.
Oh, all right, we split the difference.
There was some other movie that came out around, I think, 2002 that
Eagle Eye?
I always get confused. No, it's not Eagle Eye.
Although, you could sub that one in, too. Yeah. I don't like Eagle Eye, but it's basically the same absurdity. But Will Smith is really fun and engaging. There's a lot of really great actors in this before they were famous, like a lot. Most of the techies, you're going to be like, oh, it's Jack Black. Oh, it's Seth Green. Oh, it's this guy. Oh, it's that guy. Oh, he's in Ocean's 11 later. And Jon Voight, just the perfect amount of over the top. I just find it insanely watchable, even though I know it's really stupid.
Would you put this under your best favorite, underseen, or underrated?
I would put it as favorite. I can't really defend that movie as underrated. I think it's probably appropriately rated.
I mean, it's got a 7.3 on IMDb. So
It might
there
be
are some-
overrated.
There are
Yeah.
some
Kidding.
people who, I mean, I guess the people have found this movie and agree with you. I haven't seen it since 1998.
Oh, wow. My wife loves it. I've probably seen it 15 times.
I will always remember the trailer though, where Gene Hackman's like, "I blew up the building," and he's like, "Why'd you do that?" And he's like, "Because you made a phone call." And I was like, "Okay, I'm watching that." Tony Scott, Gene Hackman, we're doing it. Will Smith.
Yeah, it's got a great cast. It's schlocky.
Yeah.
What's the word I'm looking for? Pulpy.
Well, this is also, I think, just as an aside, where paranoid Will Smith started coming from, like
Oh, yeah.
real life paranoid Will Smith.
Oh.
like he started coming up with conspiracy theories and crap. So, like, Enemy of the State was sort of like the jumper for a lot of that.
Yeah,
you know,
probably.
that type of stuff, I believe. But
He probably still is, but it's impossible to overstate how likable Will Smith was in all
no
through the
kidding.
90s. By the time this comes out, we'll have done the music video sins did Summertime.
yeah.
DJ Jazzy Jeff.
Oh.
And I was going into that thinking there's got to be a zillion in here because it's just so silly. But man, he is so fucking likable.
Yeah.
Would it?
And he makes fun of himself. He's goofy. He's laughing. He's dancing. The lyrics are not all that bad. It's just kind of cliche.
I don't know what exactly happened to him. You can see that the career trajectory after his awesome 90s run, and he's got a lot of really good movies from the 2000s too, but you can see some sort of like calculation to his career trajectory, and it starts to wear on his actual likability because I didn't see that Concussion movie. I know that you say that that's a really good one, Jeremy.
I enjoyed his. I think he's really good in it. I don't know that I would say the movie's great. But,
Yeah.
he's really good.
I mean, but it seems like a lot of his movie choices now are these really sincere or dark, or it's I don't know exactly why that is. The thing that in After Earth that's such a downer is his performance.
I know, right?
I mean, I know he's supposed to be this military father and everything, but man, every line reading is like this.
Yeah. They've evolved to kill you.
Yeah, everything on this planet has evolved to kill you, and like he's just like he looks like he's like within a remark of slapping his son every single time he says something.
He kind of does.
Yeah, he kind of does. But all these movies, man.
I mean,
like
is it
7
possible-
pounds and
Is it possible he's, at least for a time, was chasing some sort of respect as a serious actor? Because he did that run of like Happiness and 7 Pounds and whatnot. Even his most recent stuff, like Focus and like.
Collateral
When was the
Beauty.
last time he's done like a jovial? Now he's going to do Lion King or Aladdin. But fun action romp.
yeah, it could be Men in Black 3, which is a terrible movie. But,
Yeah.
but it could be the last time he tried that. Even, well, let's see. I mean, Hancock. Hancock is another one that I would probably put in that category. But like Pursuit of Happiness, maybe the bridge of that one that where it's got both. He's got comedy and drama in there, and then. After that, 7 pounds, man. God. It's like so
Yeah,
The subtitle of that movie is "We're going to do everything we can to make you sad."
and I Am Legend is another one that's it's supposed to be, I guess, this big huge blockbuster type movie, but that's even sort of dour
Yeah, man.
and everything. So I don't know where the choice became for him to be like, we can't be joking around with all
I
this
guess
seriousness going on in the world.
But he's got such good range as a comedian. Everybody knew him as like this, clean as a whistle type of comic. But then, like I was watching that the scene in I don't think it was in Bad Boys 2 where the kid shows up to take his daughter out. And he comes up and like with his gun out and everything.
Oh yeah,
and he is fucking filthy in that.
Yeah,
man.
it's
And,
generally one of the best scenes of that movie
it's
that people
fucking hilarious,
always bring up. But
Even though it's so far out of line.
oh yeah,
it is.
Oh yeah,
It is.
List that movie as a stupid premise just for that one scene.
So yeah, we completely derailed into a Will Smith discussion
I like
there, which
derailing,
is
though.
I do too.
Not in real life.
I do too, but let's go on. The favorites of this genre.
So you can go obviously two ways in when you're adapting a board game. Some board games you can actually see as an adaptation that it makes sense. Battleship obviously did not do that. That was a fucking ridiculous movie. But now it's become kind of a cult favorite. But Clue, which I've talked about on the show before, but Clue is ridiculous. It's a little more cinematic, certainly, than Battleship or something like that. But it's still based on a board game, a murder mystery. And you would not have predicted that you could come up with this comedic romp with all these talented people, from Professor Plum killing somebody with a lead pipe in the parlor or something like that. But it kills it.
For a second there, I thought you were going to say you were listing Battleship among your favorites.
Yeah, I did too. I was a little worried.
I was thinking about Battleship because I was sending a movie that had Rihanna in it.
Because I would have been like, defend Battleship.
Yes, please. I would like to hear how you try.
In 10 words, defend it.
I got one for favorite. Tron.
Oh, the original.
Yeah.
And by extension, Tron Legacy.
Yeah.
Because it's the same thing, basically.
Yeah.
Humans get sucked into a video game. That's stupid. That's really fucking stupid. But Tron will always hold a special place in my heart. I've never seen anything like that. And I think it was pretty pioneering.
Yeah.
Even though you watch it now and you're just like, almost can't help but laugh at the effects. At the time, because this movie came out in, 82?
Yeah.
At the time, it was like mind-blowing, especially if you were 7 years old.
Well,
like
yeah. I mean, who didn't fantasize about being in that bike race thing?
Exactly.
Awesome.
Which, of course, they made a game out of that, or did they make a game out of that, or did the game exist before? I remember playing a game where
it was on Atari, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. You play a game where you're building basically a wall
with the bike.
Yeah, and you're trying to sort of ensnare the other rider into it and everything. Yeah, that's a good one. Tron Legacy is just a beautiful movie to watch.
I love watching
Now,
it.
I haven't seen it since it came out, and it seems to have gotten a lot of a big cult following since it came out and everything. But I didn't like it the first time I watched it, so I may have to give it another chance.
I think it has issues, but and I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, that the way that film creates mood with the visuals and the Daft Punk score is just, I want to feel that feeling.
Yeah. So
I go back to this movie, once a year maybe, just because I'm kind of craving Tron Legacy, right? Because there's nothing else like Tron Legacy.
Yeah.
Anyway, it just kind of creates a mood that I can't get from most other movies.
Yeah, the story is not something that'll knock your draws off. Or anything like that.
His son got sucked in now.
Yeah.
Oh.
Then there's a younger Jeff Bridges.
That's right.
Yeah. And
Which
somehow Olivia Wilde makes it out of the game into the real world.
Yes.
Well, and I think
Got to be hot somewhere.
I think I mean, definitely. I thought I think I brought this up before, but that scene where he's talking to her and they're looking out and to whatever, and he says something about she doesn't understand anything about the real world, doesn't understand the concept of love or anything,
right?
And he says something like, "Oh, it's totally beautiful," and then she has this look on her face like, I get what you're saying. You're complimenting me, aren't you? And I'm like, no, you don't. You didn't understand that.
He's just smiling.
Okay, so I have two here. I know that you don't like Scott Pilgrim versus the World, so I will talk about that, but I know that the other one that I have in my favorites, Being John Malkovich, is probably something that you might want to talk about.
Yeah, and we're kind of coming back to Charlie Kaufman here a little bit, aren't we?
Yeah, I've got a lot of Kaufman, Spike Jonze type stuff in here.
Yeah,
so.
and you know what's weird? Being John Malkovich is one of the best movies I get uncomfortable watching because of how dirty everything is. Everything is dirty. Yep. Everyone's dirty, schlubby, ugly, dark, rainy. And it's hard to watch for that reason, even though I know what I'm seeing is brilliance and I can laugh at the right parts and enjoy it. It's just, it's hard to get me to put that Blu-ray in, just because I feel like I need a shower when I'm done.
I was watching this the other day. My wife came in and she was like, "What is this?" And I was trying to figure out how to explain it.
Oh, yeah.
And I distilled it down to, there's a portal into John Malkovich's brain. And when she came in, it was the scene where Malkovich goes into his own brain. And it's all these Malkoviches around. And they're saying is Malkovich. Malkovich. There's like a little baby with Malkovich.
This is one of the, that scene right there is one of those, I don't know what is so brilliant about it, but I do believe that everybody in the theater is hoping that it will happen before they know before they know what's going to be in the movie. they're hoping Malkovich finds a way into his own portal, and they've made the scene.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times a movie like that will come and go, and it'll be like, oh man, wouldn't it have been great if John Malkovich could have gone into his own portal? What would he have seen?
Yeah.
You know, and all that.
Yeah, because even Cusack is just like, I don't know what's going to happen. He's like, Mr. Malkovich, you may not want to do that.
Well, and I always wonder and kind of daydream about how this all came up together.
Mhm.
Like, because either he had the balls to write that script and then send it to John Malkovich and land him.
Yeah.
Or they tried it with somebody else
Mm-hmm.
and got rejected until they found Malkovich. Like, could the movie have been called Being Alec Baldwin?
Well, I had read something about Tom Cruise was originally approached
Interesting.
on that. I don't know if that's true or not. I wonder if this movie is nearly as good if you don't have somebody as quirky as John Malkovich.
Exactly.
It works the same way with Christopher Walken. If you had Christopher Walken, be in that, which would be the perfect sequel, obviously.
Yeah. Christopher Walken. Malkovich gets inside Walken's portal.
Right.
Walken.
Anytime you have an actor with that kind of a quirk to it, that works perfectly. Being Tom Cruise, you start making fun of Tom Cruise.
Right.
It's like, well, we've all done that.
Yeah.
But that is a ridiculously absurd premise. The fact that he goes into this office building that has a 7.5 floor, or whatever the half floor is.
Yeah.
And like they have that training video that gives that whole background of it's a total bullshit background.
Right.
But like, all these people are preparing to go into this portal and live in John Malkovich for the rest of their lives. That is insanity, and somehow they make a great movie.
It really is.
I mentioned Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which is almost Tron-esque, because you're talking about basically going down into a video game, even though they're not going into a video game. They're like sort of real life is a video game,
Right.
But the premise is, in order to date Mary Elizabeth Winstead, he has to defeat all of her evil exes.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how he keeps saying evil ex-boyfriends and she keeps going exes.
Yeah.
And never explains why until finally, but that's absurd too, because this is all, he has to defeat all the evil exes, and he's not even informed.
Oh,
that, he is, but he doesn't read the email.
Right.
And then when he's fighting these people, they have hit points and they turn into coins when they're dead, and it's insanity, man.
Oh, it's so
and
good.
it's not, by the way, it's not that I don't like it. I just can't take it. Like, it's just too caffeinated for me.
It's manic.
And just gets my blood up. I got to keep myself out of those environments. I can see the quality that's there, but it's just like Edgar Wright took a little acid before making that movie. It's hard for me to watch.
I think I've said it before, but it's just so shocking when they have that first battle, because they're actually fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you expect it's an evil ex and shoving around or that kind of thing, but then they start fucking fighting.
Yeah.
Like, he's throwing punches and doing roundhouse
But
kicks
it's
and shit
almost
like
these people don't have any superpowers until they start fighting.
Yes, exactly.
And then, Jason Schwartzman is the guy who's behind it all, and he's the one who's, organized this. It's like, that would be a movie in its own right.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to, have him find all these evil exes who just happen to live in the same area, and come up with the rules of this. You're all going to try to defeat Scott, because he's trying to date the girl that I want. What an insane but glorious premise.
Oh man, it does build. I mean, it's got kind of like a Raid 2 type of thing where you've got to advance and video game type of thing. But like that Battle of the Bands, it keeps taking it up a notch at each successive X. And when it gets to the Battle of the Bands, it goes nuts. And you're like, oh, what's going to top this? And then he has the thing with Jason Schwartzman, which is awesome.
I don't know if I ever brought this. This is another fucking aside. Gosh, we're just going to be derailed the entire time.
It's all right.
But one of my favorite parts of Scott Pilgrim versus the World is when Alison Pill looks out at the band that's playing before them, And they're like, they've got a female drummer. And like, it's this little girl, who's like 6, 7 years old or whatever and everything. And she's like upset. And so then, 10 minutes later, they're playing on the stage and everything. And Allison Pill's like sitting there drumming and everything. And there's just this one little cutaway to the little girl on the side of the stage looking really angry at
That's so great.
It's just a quintessential Edgar Wright gag.
It is.
I got another one for favorites.
Go for it.
The Martian.
Ooh.
They trick you by moving into the future and using a lot of science jargon. But this movie's impossible. I would go so far as to call its premise ludicrous.
Really?
Yes. How many times have you seen it?
2-ish or so.
The number of things that have to go right is literally unbelievable.
For him to get off?
Yeah, for him to survive and get off the planet. There's like, by a factor of 10, like 1,000 different things that have to go right. In real life, even in 2025 or whatever the fuck year this is, that guy's dead. Guy's dead a couple different times.
I agree with you to a certain extent. I think that the chances of him surviving, as the movie shows it, and as even the book describes it, is probably literally impossible. But I do like how they sort of couch it by the end of it, when he's teaching at the end and saying that, did I believe I was going to die? Yes, I knew that was a real possibility. But his reason why he survived was that instead of panicking and just saying I'm dead, he thought the problems out, and he said, you use the knowledge that you've got to try to make this work. I feel like he should have died when the thing exploded.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was something that's very really going to happen probably when you're trying to make a whole potato farm on Mars.
What always drives me crazy about this movie is they were there for 18 days, and this storm so bad came they had to get off the planet because it was going to kill them.
Right.
And somehow that storm does not damage the Hab. And then Watney's able to spend couple years up there, maybe more.
Is that what it was?
With no other similarly sized storms?
I don't know how long was it? 2 years for real?
Yeah, because when they decide to send the Hermes, they're
that's
like,
right.
Look, I'd be adding 532 days to their mission.
Yeah,
that's right. It was several years.
And there was never another storm that was 18 days into the mission. There's a catastrophic storm, but not another one the entirety of the rest of his time on Mars.
There was in the book.
Yes,
that was a big plot point of the book.
It's one of my favorite parts. You're talking about near the end where he doesn't know there's a storm until he starts picking up subtle clues and he doesn't know which direction to drive to avoid the storm. So he drives over here and sets something down to get some readings, and drives over here and sets something down and figures out through smartness where the storm is and what direction it's moving. Because at that point in the book, he's lost contact with NASA, and they're watching him drive straight into this storm that's going to kill him. Anyway, it's pretty awesome part of the book.
It is cool, and unfortunately, with length considerations and everything, they couldn't do that because that would have been an awesome scene.
Yeah, and you guys know I love this movie. I'm not trying to rip on it by calling it stupid. I'm just saying it's if you boil it down to what actually happens and you just rattle off everything that happened that kept him alive, it would sound really stupid.
Let's not forget also the fact that the people on Earth would not have been able to cooperate as well as they do. China's just handing off rockets.
Hey, we got one over here.
And they make a big deal about, they would have never known we could have helped, but look, now we're going to do it. And we'll show how good we are.
Many nations cannot sell rocket.
Cannot sell rocket. All right, Underseen.
Okay. I have a lot for this, but I'm going to settle on Mars Attacks.
Okay.
Because I think anytime you talk to somebody about Tim Burton, how often does this come up?
This is such an unbelievably divisive within me movie.
Really?
Mars Attacks.
Yeah. It's like that guy you were talking about that eats half his plate.
Yeah.
Like, I half love this movie and half hate it.
I mean, it's so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many moments in it that I pick out that I'm like, I like that. And the visuals of it are good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, it's ridiculous. Tim Burton to this point had done Batman, Beetlejuice, all these Edward Scissorhands, things like that, and really had gotten into his niche as being, yes, a fantastical director, but also it's kind of serious subject matter too. Especially Ed Wood was before this. And then he releases this, which is pure pulp.
Yeah. This was based on Topps trading cards.
Yeah, exactly. And the way that the Martians are, you talk about Martians, the way that they're drawn, the way that they're acting, the over-the-top performances, especially by Jack Nicholson, is just ludicrous.
He's doing 2 roles.
Yes.
Or maybe even 3? Does he have 3? Or is it just 2?
I think it's just 2. He's the president and he's the oil man.
Yeah.
But the first time that I saw this, I didn't like it all that much. I liked a lot of it, but I didn't like it all the way. This has gotten a lot better with age for me, because once you take it as what I think he intended you to see it as, which is just pure comedy, visual gags, like just a pulpy experience, I really enjoy watching it now. And I think it is underseen. Like I said, I don't think many people are bringing this up in conversations about Tim Burton's career,
like there's a couple of moments that I always remember about Mars Attacks, like the one where the alien's chasing after the guy and shooting at him, and he's like, and the little translator thing's on him, and it's like, stop, we are your friends. He's like sitting there blasting and stuff, and like the Jack Nicholson speech at the end where he's like, Earth and Mars together. And he's like, he makes a point to show Earth is way bigger than Mars with his hands. He's like, Earth, his hand is like huge, and Mars, like, like really tiny. And yeah, I mean, there's so many people in it. There's like Pam Grier, Jim Brown. There's Ray J as a kid.
Ray J is in there, yeah.
There's who else? Oh, you have Michael J. Fox, Sarah Jessica Parker, Pierce Brosnan, Natalie Portman, Glenn Close.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of people in this.
Annette Bening.
Yeah, Annette Bening, and Lucas Haas, who also has a line at the end where he's like, I think it'd be better if we lived in teepees.
Yeah.
It's better if you think about it, But yeah, this is a good one. This is a good one because it could also be maybe possible. I don't know. It may be properly rated.
Yeah, probably so. I mean, it's probably, and I think I looked earlier, but it's like right in the middle, which is probably about
like low 6s on the IMDb,
somewhere around there, and then like 50%ish on Rotten Tomatoes. And yeah, I think so. It's going to divide critics. It's going to divide people like us that just enjoy movies for what they are. But I think a lot depends on how you watch this, much like Tron Legacy, where like how you go into it, not really expecting the emotional heft that you get from Edward Scissorhands or Ed Wood or something like that. Just kind of, here it is.
Yeah. All right. So I have on my underseen another of that Charlie Kaufman branch, even though he wasn't a part of this one. Be Kind, Rewind.
Oh, nice.
This was Michel Gondry who did this, who would later do the Science of Sleep and
the Green Hornet
and the Green Hornet. But this is in that same sort of category and everything. Be Kind, Rewind. I wouldn't consider it necessarily a great movie, but it's a stupid premise that's a fun premise. These guys at a video store, when they run out of like movies or what is the actual?
I think they have like a magnet or something like that is accidentally wiped
erased
all the VHS.
movies.
Yeah.
Okay, I always wondered. I can't always remember why exactly they have, but they end up shooting their own Swedish or Swede versions.
Yes, that's what I was trying to figure out what it was.
Of these movies of like Ghostbusters and stuff like that. And so they pass those on as the actual movies. So they don't think that there's any way that this is going to last for very long. They just do it as a desperate attempt. And then they find out that the people actually like their versions of the movie.
Yeah.
Obviously they run into other trouble, I guess copyright. I can't even remember if it's copyright or what that just comes out of
there's a whole thing I think about the store being threatened to shut down or something like that.
Yeah, stuff like that. I haven't seen it since it came out, but I do remember enjoying this movie because it's a really silly premise. Jack Black and Mos Def.
Yeah. And they're perfect together.
Yeah.
Like you can see Mos Def's nerd boner in this movie.
Yes, you can.
Which is kind of crazy because, before this, he had been doing tracks with Kanye and like Talib Kweli and stuff like that on a very serious trajectory. and does this, and I guess Hitchhiker's Guide for the Galaxy a few years earlier.
Yeah.
And really shows he's a good comedic actor.
Yeah.
Now he lives in like South Africa.
Yeah, I think he's back now, but he was there for a while.
Oh, I missed him.
Yeah, I know. He was a guy. He was a welcome presence that you saw in a lot of movies in this 2005 to 2008 time. Plus Chappelle Show, he was on that a bunch too.
Yeah.
He
was great at the race draft.
Yeah, that's one of his best moments on that show. But yeah, Be Kind Rewind. That's a fun movie. I wouldn't recommend it as life changing great or anything, but I don't think it got its proper due.
Yeah, it's underseen, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, so you want to go on to underrated?
We can go to underrated, sure.
All right, I've got Home Alone 2.
I haven't seen. Have not seen this movie since it came out.
Me neither.
Seriously?
Me neither.
So this was like 93, I guess, when it came out. 92, 93?
92 sounds right.
92.
Pretty quick turnaround after the first one.
Yeah, first one was in 1990. I think this was 92.
Well, much like 22 Jump Street, it's the exact same movie.
Right. Only it's in New York.
Exactly. This movie is endlessly watchable for me. Every holiday season I watch it. It is ridiculous. Talk about now. You can make an argument that the first movie had a ridiculous premise.
Yeah.
That people go off and leave their kid. I'm sure it happens though. People leaving their kid on vacation again, like within the next year.
Yeah.
Now that's fucked up, man.
Yeah.
You should probably be getting a visit from the child services after that.
Well, because in this one he actually makes it to the airport. So they're like, "Fuck, we're good.
Yeah.
As long as we got it to the airport, we're fine." And then he ends up going to New York. They go to wherever, I think going to Florida. And he ends up having done the prep work of like a jewel thief. He has like his dad's recorder, or he has his own recorder. He's got his dad's wallet. So he's got everything he needs to do whatever the fuck he wants to in New York. He's like, set up at the Intercontinental Hotel. He's just fucking living life large.
Does the movie, or did something else later that I read point out that it's hard to get lost in New York, considering that all the streets are basically like it's a box, a grid.
Yeah.
So it's hard to if you try to walk down Broadway in Manhattan, you can get a little bit confused, but
it's along the ley lines.
But so along the ley lines for sure, absolutely. But yeah, like that was something that was brought up. It's like it's like the cross streets are all pretty easily figured out. And
obviously, he is lost in New York though,
sure,
because apparently he knows his way around pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to FAO Schwartz. He's going to like all these landmarks.
He runs into Donald Trump.
He runs into Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
At what I think was his building at the time.
Right.
But yeah, like the reason that this is really watchable for me is Macaulay Culkin sells it. I mean, the murderous rampage that he does at the end is even more murdery in the second movie than the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's even more funny too.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern, man, like I can get on board with two of these things. Now, obviously, the third one, no. I think they even made a fourth one. With Scarlett Johansson was in one of them.
Oh, really?
But yeah, I'm on board until 2. It's not as good as number 1, but the second one has 27% Rotten Tomatoes, and I think it's definitely better than that.
I think Jake Lloyd was in the third one.
Oh, really?
One of those. It was one of those child actors.
The third one was Alex Lintz, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Alex Lintz.
I can't believe I remember that name.
What I'm thinking of.
Because I don't think Alex Lintz is still in the scene.
Yeah, Alex
in the
D.
scene.
Lintz.
Just pulled that out of my ass.
It is Alex D. Lintz, but I don't. Why did I think he was in? Why did I think Jake Lloyd?
Jake Lloyd's in Jingle All the Way.
He is indeed.
Well, you're talking about a Christmas movie. I thought maybe that's where the wires got crossed.
No, I want to say maybe possibly he's in. Maybe not. I thought he was in one of those Home Alones that were maybe on video or something. I don't know. Alex Lintz, folks.
I got one for underrated. I don't know what it's rated, but I'm sure it's not good. Reindeer Games.
Ooh. Going back to Christmas.
Ooh, underrated.
Anybody seen this movie?
I have. I saw it in the theater, and that's the last time I saw it.
Okay, so this is a stupid premise.
Mm-hmm.
If we ever sinned this movie, which we never will, we would definitely have a big, fat, long, let's talk about the villain's plan thing. Because this movie gets so interested by the end in surprise reveals that it breaks down all the goodwill it's built up leading up to that. But I say if you go in watching knowing that it's going to get Scooby-Doo at the end with like all the reveals, it can be a fun ride. You have young Charlize.
Uh-huh.
You have Gary Sinise. young Ben Affleck.
Yep.
And basically, Ben Affleck has been pen paling with Charlize Theron, who's basically the real mastermind. And they get her brother and his gang of thugs basically kidnap them, and they're going to force Ben Affleck to help them rob an Indian casino somewhere in like Minnesota or something, because he used to work there. But none of that is actually true, because it's all being masterminded by his former cellmate, who's in love with Charlize Theron. It's all revealed at the very end, and it does completely fall apart. I'm not saying it's good. It's fun to watch, and I wouldn't be surprised if you told me Rotten Tomatoes has it at like a 19. And I bet it's
one of those movies that is oft cited as one of Ben Affleck's worst.
It is, but I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as some of his worst
stuff. But I haven't
stuff.
seen it in forever. I do remember a scene with Charlize in the pool, though.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, but married, and I don't like hot women anymore.
Right. Exactly.
Did you find it?
25%.
Okay, so I think it's better than that. It's a great movie for a Saturday afternoon. You're flipping channels. You just want to have something on to half watch. This movie was made for that.
Nice.
So anyway.
On my underrated, I have 2 movies. I think we've talked about both of these before. Dude, Where's My Car?
I'm glad somebody brought that up.
Yeah.
Talk about a ridiculous fucking premise,
This
man.
is one of the all-time ridiculous premises.
God bless, it's so good.
These guys have gone on such a bender in the previous night, they don't remember anything, including where their car is, which starts with the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Dude, where's my car? They must say that about 5 or 6 times. But yeah, this is the sort of the precursor to The Hangover and all that, where there's this you must have had this epic night, but they have somehow run into aliens and, just because we are hot chicks. There's like there's a whole segment there where they're at a fucking fast food restaurant and he's talking into the little speaker and he's like, he wants this and this, and it's the person on the other end keeps going, and then, and the and then thing probably goes about 5 minutes or something. It goes forever.
No and then.
But Ashton Kutcher and Sean William Scott, I mean,
perfect.
It's a perfect vehicle for them, and it's again, this isn't. I put this in underrated. It may be properly rated. It's not. I mean, it's not.
It's more than what it appears to be.
For sure, it's way more entertaining than it was ever given credit for. I think a lot of people like to use this as a punchline, as dude, where's my car? Like they've never seen the movie. It is as ridiculous as the title.
Right.
They didn't go looking for a Beavis and Butthead type comedy here. They were going for, it's just silly. Just deal with it, and it's silly.
By the way, 18%.
18.
Wow.
There you go.
Definitely underrated.
Some good underrated picks.
Good call.
Yeah, for sure. Any others that we want to bring up before we...
I'd like to bring up Face Off.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know where we stand on Face Off, but
it's terrible. I love it.
it's a ridiculous premise.
Is it terrible,
ridiculous.
though? I don't know if it's terrible. I think
it's pretty terrible. I just watched it last week.
Oh, you guys are hurting me. I don't think it's terrible.
I did say I love it.
Yeah.
I love it too.
No. I don't think it's terrible though. I don't think you can reasonably say that movie is terrible in a way that is like, like most movies we call terrible. Yes, the premise is very out there. And Nicolas Cage has one of the most ridiculous, things with the face off in the middle of it. I want to tear his face off. That's one of the most ridiculous things ever. But I feel like this is at least a solid movie.
Well, so this is John Woo, right?
Yep.
And it's got all the John Woo slow motion action stuff with the doves flying out,
Gunplay.
stuff, gunplay. And the action is just way over the top.
It is.
And the acting is way
nothing's
over the
more
top.
over the top than Travolta.
But-
in
and
this movie.
Travolta out over the tops Nicolas Cage.
But
even.
Travolta is
be
acting
possible.
like Nicolas Cage, though.
Right.
That's the point.
Right.
Is Travolta? That is only a mirror that Travolta is holding up to Nicolas Cage at that point.
I suppose you're right. Yes.
and that's why Nicolas Cage is muted, because John Travolta is muted. But that is an interesting movie. Yes, it doesn't achieve the greatness that I think it could have.
Mm-hmm.
But it's I thought it was a solid
I think
movie.
it's in its lane as about as preposterous. The movie itself is as preposterous as its premise.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they got such enjoyable leads, and they got a nice turn from Gina Gershon and a few other
Joan Allen.
Whew, Joan Allen.
Mm-hmm.
It's really love watching this movie.
Yeah. It's just it's absolute insanity. I don't know. I don't know if I fall on the side of it being terrible, but I do think it's it is an interesting movie. A lot of people are going to take a lot of different things from that.
I'll tell you what, Nicolas Cage has a run there though in this era of stupid premise movies, and mostly with Michael Bay stuff.
Yeah.
You count Face Off, but you could throw The Rock out there.
Mm-hmm.
You could throw Con Air out there.
Yep.
It was almost like he was attracted to stupid premises.
Well, The Rock is the dumbest. I mean, I enjoy it because because Cage and Connery are really actually a pretty good team there. But The Rock is insanely stupid because they feel like they need Sean Connery for some reason, even though there's a scene where they're like, we've got the blueprints of Alcatraz right here. It's like, oh, so we really needed Sean Connery. We need to break him out of jail.
He's got to do his fire trick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is funny because the only way that he got out was to time the explosions or the fire things, going from inside to outside.
The Galaxy Quest things.
Exactly. Now they're saying that he needs to do that exact same timing that he hasn't done in 60 years backwards.
Yeah.
And that's going to be fine. He's going to nail it on the first try.
To be fair, it was 30 years at the time.
30 years ago. Of course.
I mean, exactly though. 30 years. And they're still working?
Yeah, and he's like doing his hand motions on the timing.
Yeah.
No, that's fucking backwards.
Yeah.
No, it's not the same way. Like, I hope they haven't changed it. Like, fuck, yes they have. Why is that still going? It's fucking Alcatraz. It's closed.
Yeah.
Whoever wrote this episode should be killed.
Yeah.
Fucking Phil Hartman is doing tours.
I don't have very many to mention that we hadn't talked about, but one in the underseen category is Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, which I've brought up a couple of times. Movie where it is a documentary going around following the actual killer before he is going to kill the people he's going to kill. Mm-hmm. And they come up with all the rules and all this other type of stuff. And the documentary guy is also going around with the final girl who's going to be in the movie. Yeah. And all that. It is a very interesting and fun movie to see it from the perspective of the killer and like how he's plotting to do all this stuff and everything, instead of just having the killer show up out of nowhere and like killing everybody one by one.
Yeah, that sounds really fun.
It's a fun movie. Okay, so that'll do it for that topic. All right?
Go see these movies.
Yeah, absolutely. That you'll at least have you'll have fun with a good 90% of the ones that we just mentioned. Mm-hmm. All right, next thing we're going to go on to is we're going to be talking about dream logic in movies.
Yeah.
Welcome to my nightmare.
Dreams, they feel real while we're in them, right? It's only when we wake up that we realize something was actually strange.
You really shouldn't fall asleep in class.
Life could be a dream. Life could be a dream.
Open your eyes.
Obviously, you have Inception as your cornerstone of dream logic type movies. It's one of the few that actually addresses the sort of the time difference between what you're experiencing in the dream world and then what's actually going on in the real world. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of stuff about dreams and movies and everything. I remember sort of preface this by saying I usually hate it when there's a dream in a movie.
Oh yeah, me too.
Usually,
it's a crutch.
But yeah, it is a crutch. They tell actual story expositional details in Aliens with a dream.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yep.
It's I don't know why that decision was made. But like they tell her how long she's been on the shit, like all this stuff, like is actual true, and then then the alien pops out of her stomach and then she wakes up or whatever. So yeah, for the most part, I don't like dreams in movies because it's a complete it's fantasy for the filmmakers to be. Wouldn't it be cool if this happened? But then you just ruin it by not actually having it happen by the end of it. Anyway, how do you want to steer this?
Well, I want to talk about Inception for a little bit because the only knock that I have on Inception is that the dream world is very clean, like it's crisp, which is not how at least my typical dreams are. Now, they do go into it and say, I think this is the only way he could have done it. They say, why people are drawing attention to you, why you're the centerpiece of the dream, how geography and topography can change based on what your perspective is. But dreams are fuzzy and like weird shit happens. And this, by necessity in the story, doesn't have a whole lot of that. Like, it's got a very linear storyline, on each of the levels of the dream.
Wouldn't it have been easier to just like get that guy in a room with a gun and force him to not break up his dad's company or whatever they're trying to get him to do? Like, how much money do they spend on this dream infiltration?
Right.
Couldn't they have just hired like a street tough to like beat him up and say, you better do what we want or we're going to come back and kill you? But this is so elaborate. In the middle of all of this, the dude buys a fucking airline.
Yeah.
Just so they can pay off the stewardesses. And it just seems so overly complicated when the end goal is you want to make one guy do one thing. Mm-hmm. That being said, I fucking love this movie, but I've always had the problem that you seem to have, that the dream world looks, until we get to the snowy level, which is some kind of military compound, the dreams all look too real, too much like real life. And when I dream, I don't dream that way.
Right.
And so when I agree with you that I usually hate dreams in movies, it's because of that. Because they're either doing one of two things. They're either showing you a very realistic situation, and then they're going to show you somebody sitting up in bed just to juke you, or they go way too far, like The Cell or what have you, where the visuals are just like, I've never had dreams like that. Now, maybe I didn't do enough LSD, but my dreams are somewhere in the middle, where it's usually weird but super mundane, right? Like I'm walking down the block and it just keeps repeating itself.
And let's not forget, but discuss for the next 30 minutes, the Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2 dream, where an entire battle is waged, and then they decide, nope, that didn't happen.
Never forget.
So let's talk about that for a while. No.
Let's do.
Well, what I think is like one of the best representations is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. That's the type of dream that I have, where you're turning somebody around, but you only see the back of their head, that kind of thing. And like things are disappearing into the darkness and weird shit comes up. And I think, again, Charlie Kaufman and Michel Gondry, like they can nail that type of aesthetic, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of, even in, it's The Conjuring 2 has one where it's this whole like segment of the movie where the Vera Farmiga's character goes and walks down this hallway, goes into the room, and there's a painting of the ghost that they're like looking for, and then there's like this long drawn out thing where we see the shadow go all the way to the portrait, and the shadow is and the face are like merged as one, and then suddenly it jumps out and everything, and then you find out, oh, none of that actually happened. And for the most part, I don't like it. Where is it, besides Inception, a good use? Where do we have good uses?
Where do we stand on Vanilla Sky?
Oh, I love Vanilla Sky.
I really
love
like
Vanilla
it.
Sky. Now, a great deal of that is dream logic. So the conceit is that, if you haven't seen it, is that Tom Cruise is injured in this car accident, which is a whole pretty hilarious scene, that disfigures him. And at one point, he gets so blackout drunk that he alters his life forever. And then it goes in two different ways of whether you think that he actually found a way to have the reconstructive surgery and went on to live this life and everything, ended up murdering somebody on accident, or the whole thing has been a dream. The way that I think it's been presented to me is that it definitely was a dream, right? But what I love about this movie is how, when they do give you the expositional, recap at the end, how perfectly it fits. Like it starts at that timeline, at that drunken club scene, and he says, "I just have to prolong my life until this is possible to fix me." And then you start seeing the rest of his life break down. You see Kurt Russell gets more and more frustrated about, no, I'm fucking real, man. Yeah. And he keeps throwing around. He's like, I've got 2 degrees, man. I'm smarter than you, and I'm going to use 5% of my intellect to disprove this.
This was also a remake of Open Your Eyes, which I never saw that.
I did.
Did you see that?
It tainted my experience of Vanilla Sky a little bit because I knew what beats were coming. And it's one of the weirdest fucking remakes ever because they cast Penelope Cruz in the exact same role.
Yeah.
And it's a dirtier looking, kind of a little grittier, grimier, and Cameron Crowe's is really glossy and slick. I enjoyed both of them, but I only watched it because I knew Cameron Crowe was going to remake it, and at that point, Cameron Crowe had not done me wrong, and I gotta do all this research. I'm gonna watch the original Spanish language version. Open your eyes.
Yes, the pleasure of Sophia.
The pleasure of Sophia. Who does dreams good, even though it's not a movie? The Simpsons.
Oh, yeah.
I always love Homer's dreams, like when he goes to Chocolate Land.
Yeah.
Or even when he has that ghost pepper hallucination dream and he's on the golf course and the dog says, find your soulmate, Homer. And he's like, hey, dogs can't talk. And the dog goes, woof, woof. Damn straight.
The one where he's going through the whole, the dream where he's going through all the land of meat and everything. And he takes a bite out of that living pig. And the pig's like, he's like, there you go, old chap. Yes. That's the spirit.
Oh man, I'm glad I mentioned that.
There's one movie that not so obviously goes into dream, but is very dreamlike and everything. And of course, because it's David Lynch, sort of makes you sit there and wonder what the fuck happened in that movie. Mulholland Drive.
Mm-hmm.
From what I understand, everything after Laura Herring is in that wreck is a dream. So like everything Naomi Watts is in is dream. And then like afterwards when she wakes up, everything from that point forward is real. But David Lynch never, ever, ever tells you what's going on. No. He wants you to be like, you just, interpret it for yourself. You're probably right.
I'm glad you brought that up because I actually had Lost Highway on my list.
Oh, yeah. It's another good one.
Which
Fuck
is
that movie with a pencil.
Oh, man.
Meaning that it's bad or that it's hard to understand?
That movie drove me crazy. Now, I can enjoy Lynch here and there in doses, but that movie seems to me to be the quintessential weird for the sake of being weird. Like, I truly don't believe he had anything he was trying to say with that movie. He was just wanted to fuck with you. And that guy... Robert, what's his name?
Robert Blake.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy with a pencil. He's just, by existing, he creeps me out. But then the way he's used in this movie, God, that's where I gave up on David Lynch was that movie. I was just like, God.
It's there's so many different ways to interpret it. And if you stand back and look at it narratively, you can kind of get a picture of what he's trying to get through, because at one point Bill Pullman is just essentially gone. Like he's in prison and the story transfers to his cellmate, and then it goes on from there, and then he turns back into being Bill Pullman again.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know where the female protagonist is. I forget who was in
it's Patricia Arquette.
Patricia Arquette, where she comes and goes and she's two different people and everything. There's a lot of weird like duality in this,
right? It's Bill Pullman turning into Balthazar Getty,
right.
and like who sent us this weird videotape, and
but it's cyclical because the beginning of the movie is essentially the end of the movie because he puts on the intercom, he says Dick whatever his name is dead,
right? Which
he hears at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah,
you've got that terrific scene in the party that they're at where Robert Blake is like, I'm at your house right now.
Yeah.
And he calls him, and he on the phone, it goes,
yeah. But
and he's just staring at him.
It has one of the best line readings ever when he goes, I'm at your house. And Bill Pullman, with a little pause, sort of peers into him, and he goes, that's fucking crazy. And then, he does call him. He's at his house and everything. And it's just... I love that movie. I will never be able to profess that I understand it. But I enjoy the vibe it gives us. And the Robert Loggia thing.
Yeah, man.
Oh my God, it's so funny.
Fantastic.
You get yourself a manual. You learn the fucking rules. It's just, I agree with Jeremy that he probably is just fucking with people in this movie. But man, it's the type of movie that just always makes you just like wonder. And I mean, it doesn't have any easy explanations or anything like that. It's totally fine though. I mean, how creepy would that be? Somebody sends you a videotape and it's of your house, inside your house, and everything like that. Now, I feel like that's way more interesting than probably anything else that's in the movie, really, ultimately. But it's, I mean, I don't know. I've always gotten into that. Anytime it's on, I watch it.
Yeah. And so I don't know how much of this is dream-like and how much of this is reality, because
or if it's just he's just in a loop or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, he plays around with dreams a lot, of course, in Twin Peaks. And he puts those edges on it to where it's like you don't know what is reality. He's expert at that, and it's not for everybody, but it is a compelling watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
A couple good moments Pixar's done with dreams that I enjoy. In Cars, where it's daydreams really, where he's like daydreaming about that glass mansion up in the Hollywood Hills. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
There's like a glitzy Hollywood party. And then later in the movie, he imagines the other driver winning because he can't make it to the race. And he has the Hollywood man. And then I also love in Toy Story, just that quick moment with Sid was, I want to ride the pony.
Yeah.
Because I think what's funny about dreams in real life is how they can feel so like you, but also like other sides of you can come out, just parts of your subconscious that, just the idea of Sid wanting to ride a pony in that dream cracks me up. I don't know what's going on, but I love that little bit.
Well, and that and all the stuff in Inside Out. I mean, when it goes into the other people's heads and you see a brief glimpse of like, all the dads with their mustaches and all that stuff and the moms watching their Brazilian porn or whatever it is.
Well, Inside... Totally. But Inside Out actually has a whole thing about a dream in there, like where they're casting characters and like shooting something and all that. So that I thought that was really interesting too. What do you guys think about Total Recall? How much of that really is dream? Is it it's always kind of been tough for me to kind of like pick that out or whatever. I guess by the end of it, he really is in Mars and everything, but there is a sort of a break there where you don't know whether it's a dream or if he's just stuck in the simulation the whole time, because they even bring that up. They're like, well, you've been stuck in the simulation this whole time. I guess they're just trying to make him not do the shit that he's going to do.
Yeah, all the way up until that scene, I think you could argue either way. But that's the scene where the dude who claims he's in a dream starts sweating, and so Arnold just kills him. I think at that point the movie is saying, okay, we have decided this is all real. But up until then, I think that's why the movie's fun, because you really don't know. The way they shoot that opening scene at Recall, you really don't know if it's part of the implanted memory of his vacation or if it's real life or what.
Yeah,
it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite movies, man.
Yeah,
that's top 20 all time for me.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that original Total Recall is awesome. Awesome. God, it's just like the perfect combination of Verhoeven and action and a cool premise. Anyway, I love that. That's my jam.
Have you seen the remake?
I saw it once. It was really disappointing.
Was it really bad?
Yeah.
It's just, it takes all the fun out of it.
Good people in it, too. Like, Colin Farrell and Kate Beckinsale and Bryan Cranston.
Yeah.
But yeah, they took out a lot of what was fun about that first movie.
Yeah. And it looks more sterile and grayscale. It feels more real, therefore it's less fun.
Yeah.
I don't even know
because that's
why
a bright movie. The original is a bright movie.
It is. It's colorful as hell.
Then we have, I guess, an all-timer here. One of these movies where the dream is reality, but maybe it's not or whatever, and that's Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
By the end of it, it's like, was that really a dream the entire time? I guess it was.
Yeah.
But
how does that work though?
Right.
Like, how does that work narratively? Like, she has the slippers, right? And presumably she has all this knowledge and she's been gone. It's like the Contact thing where she's been gone for a certain amount of time, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like it played 18 hours of static instead of 2 minutes.
Right.
So yeah, I don't understand like how that would have worked. Was she by herself in Kansas when that tornado comes by?
Well, that's the thing. The tornado comes and then it's like question mark profits. I mean, I guess she gets thrown against a building or something and goes unconscious, and then they find her and they put her in bed, and she dreams the whole thing or whatever. Oddly specific dream, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, you have everybody that you know is somehow in the is in the dream world and everything. I don't know if I'm different from everybody else, but usually when I dream about any specific person, I don't usually have like other people. I mean, there's like maybe a couple other people, but there's always a main character or whatever. It's not like, you know, a whole bunch of other people in there.
I usually have a pretty big cast in my dreams, I think.
I don't know. My dreams, people are always changing.
Oh, yeah.
I always know the people in my dream, and then I'll wake up and I'm like, who the fuck was that? I don't know anybody named Matt. You know what I mean? But in my dream, it feels perfectly normal. Anyway.
Yeah, most of the time I wake up, I'm like, I will not discuss this with this human being ever again. Ever. I will never.
Because of the things that you've done.
Because of the things that I did to that person. Or, yeah, just weird things that I did. It's not anything bad. It's just that it's, it's weird stuff. And
I sucked on your elbow last night in my dream.
Yeah, exactly. I don't find elbows attractive, but man, in that dream.
I don't know how far you want to go on this conversation.
Yeah.
I guess we should talk about Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Do any of us like any of those?
Nope.
I don't. I mean, the one that, I haven't seen them all. I've seen the one that everybody thinks is great, and that's the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And I never was quite, and it's probably because I wasn't allowed to watch those type of movies when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my friends were. So, like, as a kid, I imagine those movies are horribly terrifying.
Yeah.
And, but I watched it late. It's kind of like Lost Boys for me. Like Lost Boys is a movie that everybody of my generation, like when they were 11 and 12, and the movie's rated R, saw it and loved it for whatever reason. I saw Lost Boys when I was in my 30s. That was the first time I ever saw it. And I was like, this is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
I've seen it twice and it's a piece of shit. And, but yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street is one of those. I get it. If you're in that 80s mindset, being really young and everything and watching something like that, all those wisecracks and everything might really seem to be awesome to you, but the actual scary scenes are probably legitimately scary and everything. But yeah, I came too late to it. I mean,
there's so much potential in that. It's a great concept. You've got this evil villain that is, attacking kids through their dreams, and you can mess with all the realities. I think maybe if the idea and the franchise had started later, when you could get a little bit better effects, maybe a little bit, bigger budget for this type of concept, I think it really would have taken off. Now, Nightmare on Elm Street fans will probably kill me for even saying that, because, oh no, Dream Warriors, the third one was fantastic. It had the great song from Dokken in it, all that bullshit. But I'm like you, man. I just never could get into it.
It's funny. We had a question I don't know how long ago it was, about combining two movies together, and I brought up Inception and Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
And then I watched a Rick and Morty where they actually did that.
Oh yeah,
yeah. They actually combined Inception and Nightmare on Elm Street, and I was like, oh, people probably thought I got that idea from that. I didn't. I was just surprised to see it and everything. But they keep going in all these different levels, and Freddy keeps showing up in all of them and everything. It's really cool.
You ever seen Waking Life?
Yeah, I've seen it
one time.
Waking Life is. Again, depends on how much you want to go into.
You have to have a super tolerance for very verbose dialogue. It's basically it's Wiley Wiggins from Dazed and Confused, who keeps interacting with either people he knows or whatever. But this is all in his dream. This is all dream stuff. But they're all like these hyper intelligent conversations the entire time. So he talks with one person and then he'll say something like, I gotta go and do this or whatever, but then the next scene he's not doing that.
He's just on an onward trajectory basically, and running into these people that give him keys to the secret that he ultimately needs to unlock the meaning of his existence. And then it becomes about
how is he ever going to get up and all that type of stuff. How is he ever going to wake up? I think is one part of it. But yeah, it's interesting if you really just want to hear some highly deep philosophical, discussions about a lot of a wide range of topics and everything, while this just very surreal animation is going on around. It's rotoscoped.
Yep.
So it really gives that sense of weird, I guess it's surrealism.
Yeah. I love that he did that. Actually, I think the movie has a great look to it.
Yeah. But it really depends on your tolerance for all that, because it's not really a plot movie or anything like that. It's just it's like My Dinner with Andre.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, but only with animated dream sequences and everything. Even My Dinner with Andre can appear to be dreamlike, in a way. Yeah. Just the way the conversation's rolling and everything, you just kind of get lost in it a little bit.
Yeah, hearing smart people talk is good. Did you like this movie? Oh, really?
I think I listed it on a podcast a couple months ago that it was one of those visually distracting movies that the animation style put me off to where I found it hard to pay attention. It's like to me, it's the same thing as Tom Hanks in Polar Express.
Yeah,
I can tell that's Keanu.
Yeah,
why are you drawing over him? Is he in that one?
Yeah, he's in
Scanner
Darkly.
Same thing, same director.
But they do have Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy as their before sunset characters in this.
But I thought was weird about that when I was sitting there watching that, it didn't feel like canon for them. Right. It was just like it was like
an interlude.
Right.
Yeah.
But that was an interesting thing. There aren't too many famous people in it, but there are a couple where you're like, because even Richard Linklater shows up in this. But there are a couple where you're like, who is that? And you swear it's somebody big, and it's not. But yeah, it's an interesting movie. I've never really come to a conclusion as to whether I really liked it or not, though. Because it is a movie I had to watch in like 3 or 4 different pieces.
Yeah.
It was like, couldn't watch it all the way through. Anyway, what is there anything else?
Oh, Frasier. I just have to mention Frasier handled dreams really well.
Nice.
It's a show about 2 psychiatrists, so you would expect them to dabble. 2 that I wanted to mention. One is where Frasier has a dream of being in bed, and the person that comes out of the bathroom is Gil from the radio station, who's the food critic and who everyone knows is gay, but he still continues to talk about his wife that they've never met. And so Frasier spends the whole episode, he keeps having the dream, and he's trying desperately to find an explanation for the dream that doesn't mean he's gay. And so he's like, Gil Chesterton, let's see. Well, our mom's name was Hester. He's like, Dad, did you ever call Mom Hesty? Did you ever come up with a nickname called Hesty? Because in the dream, he's got a tattoo that says Hesty. Anyway, it's just very funny. And then there's another episode in a cabin where everybody has a dream, and it's very surreal, and it's all playing off their fears. So, Daphne has a dream that Niles keeps bringing in scantily clad, hot cable women and plumbers and fix-it people and going, the cable's out. We're going upstairs to fix it. And Niles has a dream where he keeps killing the baby. They're about to have a baby. So he bakes the baby in a pot pie, I think, at one point. And he has to save it from a Batman TV show, Saw. And the dad, God, what's his name?
John Mahoney.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the character's name. Martin does this the whole song and dance number with a cane and a hat. And what's funny is that the show doesn't really tell you you're in a dream right at first, and so you're not really knowing which scenes are real and which scenes are about to turn into some really surreal dream. Anyway, I fucking love that show.
No, that's a good point, because they would kind of examine that as
one of my favorite
part of their characters.
Yeah, and they there's a bunch of episodes where they talk about dreams. But one of the things I wanted to mention, I forgot to mention about Inception, is I love that line where he says, you never really remember how a dream begins, do you? And she's like, we're in a dream right now. And I just thought that was so true, right? That's everybody can connect to that statement as soon as he says that, because that's the way it works I assume that's the way it works for me. I never fall asleep and I'm like, and then Jeremy opened the door and there's a title screen and it's always right in the middle of something is where my memories from that dream go. Anyway.
That screenplay is amazing. Was that his Jonathan Nolan that
wrote
it?
I think Jonathan writes most of his story. I think they collaborate.
God damn, that's a smart-ass screenplay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's smart-ass Jonathan Nolan, because he's behind Westworld, which, even though I gave up on it, everybody seems to think is God's manna from heaven in TV form. Brilliance.
TV manna.
Yeah, it's gonna have I think the second season though is a hinge seasons for it already, because that last episode everybody was already kind of going, where do you go from here?
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see if they can take it off, because that first season, and we talked about this before, they didn't even know where it was going when they first started it, and they started shooting it and had to stop.
Yep.
And then there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense in it that they've just forgot about, like when they made the other episodes. And it was funny. I watched Westworld very passively, and that's what made me think that I may not join or may not last long in season 2, because I was not paying much attention to a lot of the details. People got really obsessed with that show, obviously. But by the end of it, where they were making all these reveals and everything, I was like, oh, okay. Well, I didn't even think that was a big reveal. I mean, it wasn't like a huge reveal to me, but then like I read an article afterwards where they made fun of how stupid the reveal was by the end of it, because they were like, here, let's go through all the clues that you may have missed with this reveal. And there's like, did you miss the part where blah, blah, blah? Like there's like all these obvious details all the way through. So like everybody was making a big deal about the big reveal, like how unreveal it was, because it was something that everybody sort of guessed,
Oh, great.
Even though I didn't, because I was just kind of, I'm watching the show. I didn't think there was anything big going on. I did think there was I was confused a little bit. I was like, I don't understand why this. Oh, okay. So they're on. Oh, okay. I see why now. That was basically how I watched that show. I didn't watch it with any deep type of, meaning to my life. Okay. So we're going to do some questions.
All right. This is fantastic.
Question.
I got something to say.
I want the truth.
I am listening.
Okay, so this person is an emailer, I believe. Feel free to email us or tweet us or SoundCloud us or Reddit us, whatever you want to do. I live in Australia, and as such, we have...
Good eye!
Yeah, right?
Way to be racist.
I know! It's not racist if we're the same color.
Oh, that's true.
If I like their race.
I forgot about that. Yeah, forgot about that.
Live in Australia, and as such, we have a pretty good exposure to film and television from the United Kingdom, Ireland, New Zealand, as well as local production. I'd love to know how much makes it over to the U.S., and what are some of your favorites from the rest of the English-speaking world. Now, we've had this question before about like foreign movies that are not U.S.-based, but we've never really had anything that was English-speaking foreign movies.
No. Now he cites what are the 3 movies he cited in there?
He said if you're looking for some great Aussie films that we all love, you should check out Kenny, The Dish, and everyone's nostalgic favorite, The Castle.
Okay, so I don't remember those movies coming into theaters. That doesn't mean they didn't. He asks, I guess, is it a he?
I think so.
Let's just assume for the sake of...
Yeah. When these movies do make it over here, we don't usually know when... We live in Nashville, so it's a little bit different than where it would be in New York. So if you're in New York, almost everything has some sort of theatrical release. And you can find it easily if you want to. I mean, you got to go through a whole list of like millions of theaters to find stuff. But... and a lot of these movies.
Why don't you just tell me the name of the movie you want to see?
Exactly. Those ones that you just mentioned, I vaguely remember hearing about them, but I never saw them.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to have to go watch them because they all look pretty good. I looked them up on the IMDb today. So for the most part, I'd say they come over here, but not necessarily in theaters. They're because most everything here is multiplex type of stuff.
Yeah.
Usually.
Would you count something like District 9, or was that made fully in the studio system?
Here's the thing. I was having a little debate about this myself, because Lord of the Rings technically is New Zealand, but it's made with American dollars, I believe, and so when it's an American movie shot in another place, that's just being on location. It's not really coming from that country. So I consider District 9 that same way, although I don't know the whole story about District 9. Maybe it was shot there and it was financed by South Africa, and then they may have...
It wouldn't surprise me, considering how much that region of the world and its suffering seems to be on his mind as a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
And
he seems pretty connected to it. I didn't know. I thought I would throw that out and see if anybody knew.
But one of the ones that gave me a little bit of a challenge, because as far as New Zealand is concerned, I was going to bring up What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh yeah,
which is based. It's filmed there. It's got New Zealanders in it and all that. But it also on the country credits, the IMDb shows United States, which makes me wonder if a U.S. company financed it and they all just went to New Zealand to shoot this movie, and is it really considered a New Zealand movie?
What about Whale Rider?
Yeah, that's a New Zealand movie.
I think it was, right?
Yeah, it's New Zealand.
I like that movie a lot.
Yeah.
My wife and I both enjoy it.
Keisha Castle Hughes, who got nominated when she was like 8 for that movie, and later on is on Game of Thrones.
Oh, who's she on that?
She's the sister of the dude in the sand snake thing guy, I believe.
Holy shit!
I believe that's her. It's either her or she's one of the 3 Vipers.
Wow! I had no idea.
I can't remember which one she is right now because those characters are awful usually.
Oberyn was really the only person I ever cared about from Dorne.
He was awesome.
Yeah.
I believe she's the sister though.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm going to have to look that up.
Could be wrong. She could be one of the Vipers though. The reason why it's always confusing is because she's way older, obviously. Yeah. And like at the end of every Game of Thrones that she's in, it'll say Keisha Castle Hughes and you're like, oh, wait a minute, who was she again? and then so I always, sort of, guess as to who she was. But yeah, so she's one of the Vipers.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Confirmed.
I'll
tell you what, it's not New Zealand, but one country that's outside of the U.S. that's been killing it lately is Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
They've produced some of my favorite movies that I've seen recently.
Like Sing Street?
Sing Street. The Lobster I thought was awesome. Mm-hmm. Finally saw Chris's recommendation of Frank.
Yeah.
Which does take place in America, but it's an Irish-based film.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just awesome. In Bruges is another one that is Irish-based.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff that's coming out of there is very different.
Mm-hmm.
It's very dry. It's humorous without being over the top. And it's really connecting with me recently. So that's probably my favorite kind of subgenre that's coming out. Irish movies. Like
Irish laddie.
Irish, yes.
There's like from Australia, there's Animal Kingdom, which is now got a successful TV show with it as well. But movie's really good too. Talked about Dead Calm in an earlier one, and that's one that I'm pretty sure is all Australia, even though Billy Zane is in it.
He's 1/8 Australian.
Yeah, he's 1/8 Australian. You're right. But mention those, and then from England, of course, there's a ton. We get more from like Great Britain than any of them, obviously. But
the mother country.
That's right. Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Monty Python, The Holy Grail. Yep. I mean, there's like a huge, wide range of British films. Most of the British films, if you were to say British film to somebody out on the street or whatever, they would immediately think of stuff like Remains of the Day and Howard's End and The Englishman Who Went Up a Hill and Came Down a Mountain and stuff like that, right? It's always those small towny...
Waking Ned Devine.
Right, Waking Ned Devine.
I didn't really enjoy this movie as much as the world did, but wasn't Muriel's Wedding...
Yeah, that's Australian.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that gave Toni Collette to the world.
Mm-hmm. I heard that was good. I never saw it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I lump it in the same thing with Four Weddings and a Funeral and Mamma Mia as these...
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, romancy movie drama D's.
Right.
That ladies love, and I, could take or leave.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen them all once. Yay.
I like New Zealanders' humor.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, you get Flight of the Conchords.
Yeah.
And you mentioned What We Do in the Shadows has Jermaine Clement in it. God damn, that Flight of the Conchords hits me every time I watch it.
It's so perfect, and why is it? Why is it so perfect?
I was watching the Rhymenoceros versus Hip Hopopotamus segment that was in their first episode. I think it was their first episode. And I asked myself that same question because Jermaine Clement just grabs your eye. just from the way he looks, his voice, just kind of his size.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, you just focus on him.
Yeah.
And he's brilliant in his deadpan and all that stuff. But Brett McKenzie is fantastic in his own right and really can hold up. I think if you had a lesser comedian next to him, I don't think it would have worked that well. So I really think having them together was really the key to success there.
There's a whole episode where I think Brett starts dating this woman, and then Jermaine starts hanging around them a lot, and so then there's a point where Brett has to sit him down and say, I think it's weird that you sit, always around us and everything and all that. And he goes, well, why do you think it's weird? And he's like, we're friends and everything. He's like, I think it's more weird because you used to date this girl. It's in the middle of the episode that you find this out. They do absurdity really well.
Yes.
And the songs are always, I don't know why they're so perfect, but Too Many Dicks on the Dance Floor.
The most beautiful girl in the room.
Yeah.
It's business. It's business time.
Business time. Talk about like a dream sequence, because like he's imagining himself with this girl.
Yeah.
And he's already skipped the romance and he's getting into, they're already married.
Yeah,
and she's folding laundry.
Yeah.
She's already taking out the recycling.
It's one of those sitcoms on HBO that I don't know, just never had a chance to take off. It had 2 seasons. But I could watch those anytime.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
perfect.
and Tenacious D had a similar run.
Yeah,
they
they
did.
did.
2 seasons, but it was a little ahead of its time. It was quirky and odd, and I could watch those episodes any day.
I think Tenacious D only had like 6 episodes.
I think you're right.
Oh, yeah,
I don't even think they actually originally aired all the ones they shot until after the music took off.
Right.
And then I think HBO was like, let's throw those episodes up there on HBO Go.
Yeah, and but I don't know, there's something about those kind of quirky comedies that never work on HBO. I mean, they built their empire a little bit on those quirky.
Yeah, the
things.
Mr. Show type of thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mr. Show, Mr. Show had a few seasons. It was definitely a hit, and that's where Tenacious D actually ended up coming from as far as a spinoff, I guess, if you want to consider it that.
Well, prior to Sopranos, I think they were more known for making comedies.
But
right?
yeah, they made their shows before Sopranos were like Arliss.
Yeah.
And
Larry Sanders,
and what was the one with Dream On was one of their first early hits. The Brian Ben
show.
It was like in the late 80s.
Inside the Mind of a Married Man too.
Oh yeah.
You remember that one?
I don't remember that one. No.
Yeah, it's
Sex in the City.
It's pretty
Sex
fun.
in the
Sex in the City.
Yeah.
That was I mean,
Ally McBeal.
Yeah, Ally McBeal. CSI New York.
I would have liked to seen an HBO version of Ally McBeal. I bet that would have been interesting.
But yeah, like a lot of those. I mean, until they did Sopranos, all the stuff that they have to be prestige about everything now. So you don't these comedies don't have much of a chance a lot of times.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're not going to get to all the ones obviously we've ever seen or think are great, and sometimes we don't even know whether they're Australian or English or New Zealand or anything like that.
You all sound the same to me.
That might be that might be an issue for us because we see so many movies and everything. I don't know how it is in other countries. They know immediately that's an American, that's an English, that's a whatever, but a lot of times you just don't know. You just assume when everybody's in Australia and speaking with the accent, that's an Australian movie.
Yeah, like Kangaroo Jack.
Yeah. Kangaroo Jack for sure. Absolutely. You guys laugh, but yeah, you're probably right to laugh.
All right. This person doesn't know if this was asked before, and it wasn't. That's why we're asking it right now. What are some nice movies that totally change feel or genre midway through?
I don't know if it's a nice movie, but The Crying Game has. I guess it's. It's nice. It's got.
Good movie.
Yeah. And that's a movie that's from Ireland right there.
Oh yeah.
But The Crying Game starts off completely different from what the movie's going to be. It's like this big like IRA terrorist drama movie in the first like 20 minutes of it. And then Stephen Ray is told by Forrest Whitaker, you got to find my girl and, and tell her all this stuff and everything. And he goes and finds her and all that. Of course, then there's the big reveal of The Crying Game. And it's sort of a love story for a while. And then the big reveal happens. And then there's like sort of a like, how is Stephen Ray going to deal with this?
Does that happen at the very end, or does that happen halfway through?
It happens halfway through because there's a lot of there's still the IRA stuff has to come to roost by the end of it.
Uh-huh.
So I believe is Miranda Richardson in that movie? I think Miranda Richardson's in that movie. She's like the big, she's like the villain essentially in that movie.
Uh-huh.
But for, the middle is cut up into two parts because it's sort of a romance between him and Jay Davidson.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jay, the reveal happens, and then there's that sort of stuff. But then there's like more with the IRA stuff by the end of it. I haven't seen it in forever, so if I'm butchering the plot, sorry, folks.
Sorry, Crying Game fans.
Yeah, but I haven't seen it in forever. But it starts off like it's like this incredible intrigue drama type of thing. Then it's like a romantic drama comedy type of thing, and then yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting movie.
Yeah, I got to see it.
I'm going to make an argument here that probably is not worth making.
All right.
And say I think the two towers shifts gears pretty dramatically for that last third, because the whole movie up until then is going to talk to this king and getting the worm tongue out of there and ants and everybody's just kind of talking, and it's a lot more like Fellowship. I think I've said this before. Fellowship is not enough action. Return of the King is too much action. Two Towers has a little bit of both,
right?
But it really is that. Can be drawn right on a line there. Once they get to Helm's Deep, it kind of turns into a war movie at that point.
Yeah.
And none of the previous stuff was that. So that's the way the book is. So I guess you kind of have to.
It is a lot of people sitting there going, "Should we go to war? I don't know if we should go to war or not. I think we should go to war. I don't know."
War.
Yeah.
I also thought of Pineapple Express, another one that.
Oh yeah, that's another.
I think
that one shifts a lot of gears.
Well, yeah, that one changes a lot just all through it.
Yep. It's like straight comedy at points. It's a straight action at points, and then it's kind of an action comedy at times. And it's a very unique movie.
It's like a romantic comedy when it starts off, because he's like, you got this girlfriend in high school. They're setting him up, like going on all his different serving trips and things like that. He just goes and gets weed, and then all of a sudden shit goes crazy.
Yeah,
I love after she's gotten mad at him, and she's like, "Just tell me when I can go home." He's like begs her to take him back. She says something about marriage, and he goes, "Oh, I made a mistake." If you want to be with me, I'm terribly immature. That means you're immature.
Yeah.
I made a mistake immediately. We talked about this a little bit, but The Beach, Danny Boyle's The Beach, really is a tale of two movies. Now, this is Leonardo DiCaprio coming off of, I think it's the one that he did after Titanic.
Well,
right?
It was a few years after.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to think if he did anything big, because the Beach came out in 2000,
right? And
Titanic was 97. But in between that time, DiCaprio had done not really high profile, but The Man in the Iron Mask, and I believe was Marvin's Room. No, it wasn't. Marvin's Room was before that.
Man in the Iron Mask.
Yeah. Oh my God,
I hated
that movie. Holy shit!
That's like the space cowboys of the Three Musketeers, right? Yeah. They're all like geriatric.
Oh, it kind of is.
Yeah, but he's definitely most known as Titanic Boy at this point, and he has yet to really scruff up his image. And maybe this is one of the reasons that he did the movie, because he is like, doing a bunch of drugs and having a bunch of sex and like, lazing his way through, the Southeast in Asia.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it starts off with getting to the beach and setting up this utopian society and everything, and how everybody interacts, and then the drama that can kind of let bloom. And then it turns into a fucking like tense thriller in the last part.
Yeah.
And the first part is so much more enjoyable than the second part.
It really is.
You don't need all that bullshit. But there it is. So that ultimately keeps it from being what I think is a really, really good movie, and it's just kind of like a watchable movie.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that.
One other one I want to mention was the movie Audition. I don't know if anybody's ever seen Audition.
That's the very uncomfortable movie.
It's very uncomfortable. Takashi Miike is the guy who directed this. It's a horror movie. But the way it starts off is it's this guy, he's looking for a wife, and he finds the perfect woman, and he falls in love with her and everything. And then she disappears, and then he goes and tries to find her, but she's laying the trap for him. But the whole, it actually goes through all the courtship and all that, just kind of like, oh, this is a nice movie. Really, you're just kind of like, you know, oh, he's falling in love. Isn't that great? She seems to genuinely like him and everything. And then it just kind of just breaks at that point. And it's got maybe one of the scariest images I've ever seen in a movie. Not grisly or anything, but the most unsettling one of the. It's just a shot of her like kneeling down. I think she's kneeling down, and it's a side shot of her face, and she knows that. I can't remember exactly what happens. I think he's showing back up and finds her or whatever. And there's this like just evil like smile that creeps up on her cheek, basically. Like she's just like normal, and then it's like you just see her lips just kind of curl up into this smile. Wow. And I'll never forget that. And of course I'll watch it again and find out that I was completely imagining it.
But that's how subtle it was.
Proceeds to torture him the rest of the movie, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's I know that there's one thing involving putting him in a bag and like leaving him in the bag and all that, or something like that type of thing. There's like I don't remember everything about the movie. I just remember it being like, you know, it starts off like, oh,
and then you got mail.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll give you another one I just watched yesterday, half-assed. It was on TV while I was doing stuff. The Vanishing.
Oh yeah,
Jeff Bridges, Kiefer Sutherland,
it's also
Nancy Travis.
It's a remake, but I know that one the best.
Sandra Bullock, and basically Kiefer and Sandra Bullock are a couple. They're on a trip. They're at a gas station. She goes inside to get beer. Never sees her again, and he's obsessed with finding out what happened to her and finding her. Did she leave him? Was she kidnapped? What happened? He's putting posters up everywhere, and this goes on for years to the point where he's a writer. Somebody asks him to write a book about how obsessed he's become with this. But he meets Nancy Travis in a bar. They start to date. He's happy again, and then she finds out he's got a secret room where he's keeping all of the Sandra Bullock investigation stuff going, and he's written a novel that says, "I love you, Diane, Sandra Bullock. Even when I'm hugging my current girlfriend, I'm thinking of you."
Yeah.
But it's basically an emotional drama up until the 2/3 point when Jeff Bridges decides to insert himself into this guy's life and says, "I'm the guy that took Diane. And if you want to know what happened, drink this drugged coffee and everything that happened to her will happen to you." And it turns into like this psychological thriller where they have to race. Nancy Travis has to figure out what's going on and race to try and get there in time. But up until then, it's almost like an investigation into the human mind.
I can't remember how he inserts himself. Doesn't Kiefer find something that doesn't he?
No, he sends him a letter. He sends Kiefer a letter that says,
"Oh, so he really does just jump right in then."
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'd forgotten that part of the movie. I just assumed that he had found something that led him to possibly this person.
No, he had actually finally made peace. Nancy Travis was going to leave him, and they're having an argument. And she literally drives him to the gas station where Diane disappeared and forces him to confront that and say, "Choose me or the memory of her. This is your last chance." And he chooses her. And they're going to go on with their lives, and he's going to let the girl go. They tear down all the investigation stuff in the hotel room, and then Jeff Bridges sends him a letter that has all the details that only the kidnapper would know, and he goes right back off the cliff.
Jeff Bridges has this wonderfully weird accent.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
It's like the kind of accent you'll spend way too much time trying to place it. Like, how did he come up with this?
He's like, "Drink this coffee."
Yeah. It's really...
It is drugged.
Really?
Yeah.
When you're doing research, cutting this up, just look for a clip from that movie of him, because every line sounds like what he just did. And it's like 3 accents rolled into one. Like for a while, I thought like he had some kind of lisp or something.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, maybe he's just from a country I've never heard of. Well, anyway, I don't know what it is.
You know, that's the like some. This is an aside because I'm going to bring up another movie, but. Those type of characters are so scary, man, because they have really no purpose to what they're doing. They just enjoy doing the things
like
that they're
Robert Blake.
Well,
yeah,
it's extra creepy because he gives this whole speech about he jumped off a bridge and rescued a girl that was drowning, and his daughter said, "You're my hero. You're the bravest man I've ever known." And he realized in that moment, unless he could do something as evil as what he had just done was heroic, he would never deserve his daughter's love. Like, he's creepy as fuck in this movie.
So it's the same thing with a character that's in the movie Compliance. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that movie. Compliance is... I struggled during the movie understanding really why these people went as far as they did. Apparently, it really happened.
It did.
If I had been working in that restaurant that day, I would have been like, "Fuck you! You can come on down here if you want." But do you know the story of Compliance, Jeremy?
Somebody called the store and got the
somebody calls the store and says that there's a drug bust and that one of the employees is suspected, and you're going to have to inspect her purse and all that, and then it gets more and more fucked up.
I remember reading about it when it happened.
You're gonna have to, she needs to take her clothes off. Then you need to start doing this and that, and then you find out it's just this dude who's just at home and he's got kids and he's just like he just gets off on it. I guess it's fascinating, those type of characters, and there's motherfuckers like that out there. Mm-hmm. So anyway,
Nancy Travis though, man.
Yeah, man. I know what you're saying.
There's
that is early to mid '90s chic. Nancy Travis.
She was beautiful.
Yes,
Destiny turns on the radio. Nancy.
That's
Travis.
right.
Yeah,
nice. There's
nice.
one. That's pulling one out. You had So Married an Axe Murderer during that time, and you had The Vanishing, and yeah, man, I love me some Nancy Travis.
I always felt like Nancy Travis would have been so much better than Andie MacDowell in Groundhog Day.
Oh, she would have been better than Andie MacDowell in most things.
Well, sure. But I don't know. I think she would have fit in very well in that one.
Yeah, she would have worked in Groundhog Day for sure.
Okay, here we go. Favorite dialogue-less sequence, character or entire film?
All right. Well, I've already talked about a scene from We Own the Night where Joaquin Phoenix is in the car chase with Robert Duvall and all that. Yeah. Discussed that many times. I don't know if I want to recommend the movie completely, but we'll watch it for that in particular. There was one that I thought of after that. I love the scene after David Dunn in Unbreakable, and in fact, that whole action scene is dialogueless actually, where he finds the guy in the yellow slicker and all that. But after that, when they're at the kitchen table and there's the newspaper with the mysterious figure saves whatever, and he pushes the newspaper over to his son, and his son looks down at it, and then he looks up at his dad, and Bruce Willis gives that little nod, and then the kid's got that look on his face, like, you really are the hero I always thought you were. Always loved that scene.
That is great.
So good. This is M. Night Shyamalan before he started doing bullshit. It's such a perfect dialogueless scene.
That whole movie is pretty quiet.
Yeah, it is.
I'll tell you what, a recent example of this is a lot of War for the Planet of the Apes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's long stretches where they're communicating via sign language, which is crazy because there are some times where the apes can actually talk. Like Maurice squeezes out a few words, and I think Rocket says a few words, and Blue Eyes, but Caesar's the only one that has full speech, it looks like, and now pretty advanced speech.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy because they've all had the same drug at this point, right?
I don't know.
But anyway, throughout that first little bit where they're traveling and they're tracking down the Colonel's crew and everything after the one thing happens to set the whole story in motion, They're just going about it quietly. You see the landscape change between forest, and then it becomes winter and it starts snowing. That stretch, man, really had me engaged. It was so quiet in that theater that we were in that you didn't want to move or cough or anything like that.
Or pay attention to the kid next to you.
Pay attention to the kid next to me. Luckily, I didn't have somebody that was messing with their recliner. But it's really, really makes that movie, I think, more compelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm going to go with a scene from Catch Me If You Can. At the end, when he's found out his dad died and escapes the plane.
Oh,
Tom Hanks is bringing him back, and he runs to his mom's house, and it's Christmas, and he looks in the window, and she has a husband and a kid, a little girl. The little girl's the only one that notices he's there, and he just kind of has this realization that he's got nothing. He's got no one. Even his family have either died or replaced him with a new kid and moved on, and how empty everything he's done up to that point is. And I think that's a key for that character as to why he would later go on to help the FBI work for them. Of course, it helps him get out of jail a little early. But I've always loved that dialogue-free, quiet. I think you can hear Christmas music. I think you can hear the police siren lights as they catch up to him and come to arrest him. And at that point, he's just backing away, and he's like, "Okay,
well,
take me away."
He's communicating with the little girl behind the window, and he just kind of like mouths the words to whatever, how old are you? I think is one of them, right. And she's like 4 or whatever, and he's like, where's your mommy or whatever, and she points over to who used to be his mom. Really, it is a really sad type of scene because he has nobody, but not only does he have nobody, but his mom moved on and is happy without him.
Yep.
Which is the real heartbreaking part of that.
Well, and he's only still, in his teens at this point, right?
I think at that point he's like 19, 18, something like that.
He's super young. Yeah, he's super young throughout this whole thing, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he starts when he's like 15.
Yeah, he's doing this for years.
So it starts off by saying what Mary Sue / Marty Stew like characters.
You know what? You know what? You can go ahead and talk about how I think this is bullshit. These type of characters are bullshit.
Okay.
I mean, we can come
this Mary Sue thing.
We can come up with examples. I'm fine with doing this, and I'm not shitting on the person giving us this question. But I do believe it's bullshit for the most part. To write a character that, okay, maybe it is annoying that they have all these great qualities and there's no negatives to them and all that. Maybe that is kind of annoying or whatever, but there are people like that out there. If there aren't, then okay, then I guess you got me there. What's interesting though is when this question came up, I started like doing research and everything. I was like, give me some inspiration, internet. And and for the most part, everybody's coming up with Wesley Crusher in Star Trek, or Rey in Star Wars, or Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. Very few, like there wasn't very many things that were coming up that were like true examples of this and everything. I disagree, by the way, with most of those examples. But in general, I think it's just kind of a bullshit like thing that people have brought up to let's once again find a way to
It's like the Bechdel test. It's not a real thing. It's just a thing somebody made up, and now people just use it as an excuse to rip on a movie.
Well, yeah, and the Bechdel test is famously not being serious. Like the original comic that came out, it basically holding a movie to a standard that is nearly impossible. And even movies that pass the Bechdel test, there's some that are stupid and shitty. Yeah. Just because you don't have, 2 women talking about a man and all this other bullshit rules that are involved with it. I just, when I was looking at all this stuff and looking at characters that a lot of these articles were writing about, like saying somebody said Neo was one of these people who's like impossibly good and everything like that. I couldn't think of really very many other than the ones that they came up with. And that's usually the same ones over and over and over again. Wesley Crusher, Rey, Luke Skywalker.
But yeah, I mean, they're the centerpiece of the movie. They have to do that.
Yeah. Right? When that was talked about with Rey in Force Awakens, I was like, well, she's a Jedi.
Yeah.
How is this like, everybody who jumped on that bandwagon, ripping that movie for having a Mary Sue is just jerking off. That's all they're doing.
And what exactly offends you so much about having a character like that? That's where I don't get it. And maybe I need to do more studies. I don't know. But I've never understood that. I didn't sit there and watch Star Wars Force Awakens going, you know what? Rey's too fucking impossible to be a person that actually exists.
Yeah.
I can't stand that shit. I mean, who actually does that except for Max Landis? But I was just sitting there I couldn't find really. So my answer to this question, even though I think this is a bullshit thing, and I'm sorry if the questioner believes in this very much and everything, I don't mean to pay any disrespect to the questioner. I don't, but the one character that I thought of was Ender from Ender's Game.
Oh.
And even though he's not impossibly attractive or anything those are the other parts of the, Mary Sue, Marty Stew, whatever, is he's not really popular, but neither is Neo and neither is Luke Skywalker and a lot of these other people that they talk. Rey isn't. Right. She didn't have friends. Ender is impossibly intelligent, knows how to do everything. The one redeeming part, and this is what they're talking about in the question, is that the redeeming part is actually a negative, is that he is willing to sacrifice his friends in the simulation to get to the greater good. This is sort of the Captain Kirk, whatever fucking, what is that? Kobayashi Maru thing, where they decide, I'm going to break the rules. I'm going to do the things that are impossible. I'm going to say, I'm going to sacrifice millions of my own people to win this thing. Yeah. Of course, then there's an even bigger surprise after that. But I felt like Ender got into that category, but I haven't really looked into it. It's never bothered me enough. I noticed one thing that does kind of bother me, but I don't think they qualify though. James Bond, Ethan Hunt, Jason Bourne, all these characters are impossibly good at everything. There's always explanation, though. They had years of training to do this and years of experience and everything. I watched Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol on the plane to Vegas a couple weeks ago, rewatched it, and I was sort of getting annoyed at how Ethan Hunt could do everything. Like, yeah, I know you're good, man, but come on, is there anything that makes you stumble whatsoever, ever in these things? It's like he always knows every language, knows like the exact way to go into something, all that. So that got kind of annoying. But anyway, that's my piece on that.
I just think it's a meaningless conversation to have. Like, because what you end up doing is spending all your time trying to find some collective definition of Mary Sue, and everybody's got a different interpretation of it. Well,
yeah, that's the thing that's bullshit about it the most, maybe. Yeah. Is that a lot of the characters that you come up with, they're not exactly the same. They don't have the same traits at all. Yeah. Like, they just happen to be the one good person that's amazing at everything. You know, Luke Skywalker and all these, you're talking about, they're Jedi. Yeah. You know, they're supposed to be some sort of inherent like knowledge within them. Yeah. Like, if they weren't, I guess, if there was, if Luke wasn't rife with midichlorians, like, I guess that would
rife.
I guess that would be like weird that he knows all this shit and everything, but no, he's comes from good stock, man. All
right, let's do one last one here. Music question. What is a band you like, despite being very popular and having a large catalog of music, seems to be treated like a one-hit wonder on the radio? I was listening to the radio for the first time in ages when Tom Sawyer from Rush came on, and I remember a long period where that seemed to be the only Rush song that would play on any station.
That is very interesting because when I was listening to classic rock stations, they'd always like try to stick Limelight and a lot of other different Rush songs in there. But Tom Sawyer definitely is the one that they like to play a lot. But there's a lot of British bands in the 80s that I feel like this falls under. Now, I personally probably aren't like sitting there owning all their albums and everything, but they had a lot more hits than the one that we know them for. The Smiths is one of them.
Oh, yeah.
And, we know about, the How Soon Is Now and all that. We know that song more than any others, but they had so many other hits, or not hits, but like, not in America anyway. Yeah. That was the thing. A lot of these bands like Simple Minds and
Soft Cell
and all that, like they would have their big, huge hit in America and then they'd go off back to their own country and have like huge, huge hits there that like I was reading about Crash Test Dummies. Remember they had that song.
They're Canadian, right?
They're Canadian. Duh, Canadian. Okay. They were Canadian. They had the song that was prevalent in 1994.
Boss,
there was this girl. But that was a huge hit here. And then basically they didn't have any other hits at all in America at all. But in Canada, they was hitting the top 10 regularly. They have like 9 or 10 hits in crazy. Canada.
I can crash test dummies.
I know,
man.
Right?
When you live in a period where is the name of a hit on the radio.
That's right.
That's a great period.
Well, and what would you consider the the era where Bawataba was?
Oh man.
Oh, ball with the ball. You got something?
I'm gonna whip out a little Eminem.
Okay.
Because unless you specifically go to a 90s era station, pretty much all you're ever going to hear on from Eminem on the radio these days is with Lose Yourself. Now, if you go to the 90s station like I do, you can sometimes get The Real Slim Shady or My Name Is. But the dude has dozens and dozens of songs that are great.
Mm-hmm.
Put out an album a year and a half ago with Berserk on it, and no one ever plays any of that music.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. It's just like, oh, we got to slot some Eminem in here. Okay, go grab Lose Yourself.
Something about, there's a shelf life for rappers, right?
I think so.
They have this period of time where they come out with like everything for 3 or 4 years. This is why, like, you know, Kendrick Lamar, like, how big is he going to be in 3 or 5 years? Is he going to still be as big as he is now? It's kind of a question. He's at that point where he's come out with 4 big, huge albums all in a row. Eminem is a good one though. Like Eminem, when that guy could do no wrong. I think his Vivo channel is still one of the top ones too.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean it's weird. Like they just don't. Nothing new that he come out with ever hits the radio. Dr. Dre had that long gestating album for a long time. Finally came out with it. I don't think I heard a song off of it.
Oh, it's not very good.
Well. You know, that could be it too. They're just not good anymore. But Eminem, I think, has done.
Man, that most recent album, I was loving it.
Yeah,
it was old school.
Yeah, that's not the one that had "Love the Way You Lie" on it, right? That was from a few years ago.
Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, I mean, "Lose Yourself" is going to be like his flagstone.
Well, and I don't even consider the shit he does with Rihanna, Eminem songs. I know he raps on them. Now, don't get me wrong. I do think "Lose Yourself" is at the same time his best musical accomplishment, and should probably be the thing we remember him for most. Because that song is damn near perfect.
Yeah, it is.
But he's got a lot of great songs, and I don't feel like I ever get to hear them.
Is it because maybe possibly the era of rap that they're in is sort of, I mean, it happens to a lot of bands, rock bands too, like where they have a certain music that works for the time and everything. Eminem's like top hits are from the late 90s and early 2000s. And nobody makes that kind of music anymore. That kind of that fun, loopy type of stuff that Eminem was known for. You know, in the early 90s, it was gangster rap that was a big, huge deal. And then people started saying, okay, let's chill out a little bit. So, you know, it could just be a function of the era that they're in. And rap goes fast. Like you got a 5-year window and then you got to, you know, either keep up or just move to the side.
Yeah, I think that those early 2000s, that era in hip hop was some of the most interesting hip hop that was ever made. You had Outkast, Ludacris, Misdemeanor Elliott, like all these things. Even Nelly, to a certain extent, doing weird stuff. I'd say that era is akin to the early 90s in alternative music, where just anything, you throw anything at the wall. Busta Rhymes was huge in that era. So yeah, it was one of my favorite periods in hip hop. I've got a million of these, obviously, but I'll just choose one. It was surprising to me. I was watching one of these like VH1 countdowns, like one-hit wonders. And one of them, they named Ben Folds.
Oh, really?
What's that?
For his Brick song.
Jesus.
She's a brick in a... yeah, that's what he's most known for. Now, I know I've been following Ben Folds from Ben Folds 5 into Ben Folds for years and years and years. Chris and I actually saw him at the Symphony a few months ago, and he's got an incredible catalog of amazing stuff. So it's really surprising to me that people would categorize him as a one-hit wonder. I get it because Brick was a huge song. It was 95, 96, something like that. I don't remember,
somewhere around there.
And it was a huge song, but when your top song, he's kind of a prankster and he's, you know, there's a lot of humor in there and he's known best for this abortion song.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't like that at all. And anytime I've seen him play live, I think he's played it once. And probably just because, you know, people want to hear play Brick, play Freebird, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my pick. I mean, I could go into early 90s hip hop that actually had kind of a similar thing where it was a product of that time, like Blackstreet and...
you just gave me another one.
Oh, yeah? Another
Wayne.
boner? Oh, sorry.
Fountains of Wayne. They only ever play Stacy's mom.
Oh, yeah, no kidding.
And Fountains of Wayne, Stacy's Mom is probably their worst song.
Absolutely it is.
And I didn't realize that until I just heard you talking about Ben Folds. It's the same kind of era for me when I was listening to both of those at the same time.
Well, it's kind of like Not a Surf, right? Not a Surf is known for popular, and famously, everybody who's into Not a Surf says, well, that's probably one of their worst songs. They have a lot of great other songs.
And they don't sound anything like that song.
Right,
Like, started sounding a lot more like, I don't know, Mumford & Sons and stuff. Or
well, Not a Surf, actually,
horses.
they did the theme for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, didn't they? Or no, that was Nerf Herder.
No, Not a Surf
has something earth in it.
Yeah.
I think they did. Is the Winter of '77? Is that them?
I don't know.
But it's casual rock. It's not like anything like popular.
Interesting. Good call with Fountains of Wayne, by the way. They've got a song called Hackensack that's one of my favorite songs of all time.
If you ever get back.
So fucking great.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this SinCast. Please keep going to SoundCloud, which is, I hear, doing well, according to Chance the Rapper.
Yes. Keep going. The SoundCloud is fine for the time being. You will be the first people to know. We will let you know if there's any problems with SoundCloud.
It will suck if SoundCloud does go away, though, because then we'll have a whole 80-something episodes where we've been saying, go to SoundCloud, give us your thoughts.
But that's the most efficient way to contact us, because we see all those comments. We try to respond to as many of them as we can. Feel free to tweet us at Cinemasins, at Music Video Sins, but SoundCloud is the most efficient way right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it for this week. It's Chris Atkinson, Jeremy Scott, and Barrett Sher. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com. You look baby-faced.
Yeah, got the baby face going
Oh,
on.
I didn't even realize you shaved.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly how distracted I am today.
Yeah, yep.
I feel weird that I have the only beard in the room now.
I did the big Richard Kimball thing in Fugitive, man. I got the scissors, started cutting it down. The only thing I didn't have was the hair coloring shit and all that other, whatever.
Whenever I have a big long beard, and I like to shave it into something goofy and then surprise my wife. So I take out the clippers and I'll buzz some kind of weird pattern, or I'll just leave two flayed out 6-inch swaths on both cheeks. And then I'll pull it out like an evil mustache, and I'll walk into the room bobbing my head.
That was the interesting thing. After I'd cut a significant portion of it, and it was the beginning whiskers were there. I was like, maybe this style I can sport at some point or whatever. But yeah,
you remember in every Psych 101 book there was a section about hemi-neglect, where it's a picture of a dude that has shaved only one side of his face because he doesn't recognize that the other side of his face is there.
Oh, no.
It's where there's different ways to cause it, but it is a phenomenon. I actually met a guy that had this.
Mm-hmm.
His corpus callosum was severed.
What is that?
The connective tissue that separates the hemispheres in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And the connectivity between those two had found a different way. He was otherwise functional, but he would only eat one side of the plate. If he was eating, he would only shave one side of his face.
Oh, my God.
He would have to have somebody come in and shave the other side of it.
Wow. That's fascinating.
He didn't. And then I had another patient that had an agenesis of the corpus callosum, which means that it never grew.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no direct connection between the two hemispheres.
Mm-hmm.
But for some plasticity reason, his brain ended up compensating for it. So he didn't have any other problems except for schizophrenia, but it was a mild case. But, it was really weird. We got him in the MRI and they're like, where the fuck is his corpus callosum?
Yeah.
It should be right there.
Examined him rectally to find that he was without rectum.
Yeah.
I was watching a little bit of Robin Hood Men in Tights before I left, and I forgot Dave Chappelle was in that.
Mm-hmm.
Early Dave Chappelle's career in no way foreshadows what a legend he will go on to become.
Nope. He was in Con Air, wasn't he?
Oh, probably.
He was in Con Air.
I think I purged that movie from my brain.
Oh. I might bring that up actually today.
That is pretty
ridiculous premises. He was in Con Air, he was in Men in Tights. I liked him in Men in Tights. He was like, look, I'm on one side of the creek, and now I'm on the other. Just jump over.
I went down a rabbit hole last night. I almost tweeted about this, but I was watching Starship Troopers on Stars and decided I'd seen this movie enough in recent weeks that I was going to flip to something else.
Mm-hmm.
So I went through the guide and saw that TBS was running their Friends reruns, and I
Nice.
clicked to it, and it was the episode with the redhead girl from Starship Troopers in it, where she's at a play with Joey, and they sleep together.
Oh, yeah.
And Ben Stiller's also in that episode. But then I was like, I can't remember her name, so I went and looked up Starship Troopers, clicked on her name. She's got bazillions of credits. She's been on every TV show you've ever heard of.
Interesting.
And she's been in a lot of movies.
She was in Saw 3.
Oh.
Dina Meyer, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
That's
Diz. Diz from Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
I'm okay with a future where we all bathe naked together.
I actually had Starship Troopers 3 was on the TV somehow, and there's another naked bathing scene in Starship Troopers 3.
It's tradition.
It's a hallmark.
Is it on all of them?
It's
No,
like,
I don't
It's
know.
like Jason Bourne having a car chase in every movie.
If you were naked.
But yeah, they sort of just well, this is the future. Everybody's cool with this now. Like you don't really like I understand there's some sort of equality there, but like how did that ever translate? Like they had to have like passed a law or something,
there was an
right? Where
edict.
they were like, look, be grown up about this, guys. That's basically the law, right? Be grown up about this. Men and women can shower together without it being sexual.
Well, I mean, remember Ally McBeal? It was kind of like a big deal that law firm in the show had co-ed bathrooms. But now I see unisex bathrooms everywhere. Like it's a trendy thing in restaurants now to have like 3 bathrooms that are male, female. Just go in there and make sure you're clean.
But they're one-seaters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but in Ally McBeal, it was like each individual stall was all together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild.
That's progressive.
It's funny how that show was a cultural cornerstone for like 2 or 3 years, and then people either got tired of it or they were too self-aware, or
Doesn't that happen with most of David E. Kelly's shows?
I think so.
Picket Fences, Boston Legal.
Yeah.
They all have a 2-3 year run where they're super popular, and then it just kind of wanes.
Yeah, it's like the style of it is a great novelty at first, and then it gets into 3 or 4 seasons, and people are like, it starts eye rolling.
Yeah,
This is a very long entry on his character, not Peter McNichol, but his character in Ally McBeal.
Is it some kind of wiki?
Yeah, it's Wikipedia.
Because there's a lot of those fans make a whole Wikipedia over it. And
They usually go deep on those.
Somewhat similar to the Wikipedia page, but I don't think Wikipedia has anything to do with it.
No, I think there's like some kind of open source wiki thing where you can build your own.
Right, but those things are deep, man. A lot of times when we're doing anything comic book related, I'll just for background, I'll go and look and see like, these characters, what their origins are, and where they first came from, and what their powers are, and all this other stuff. You go to almost any comic book character in these Wikipedia things, and it says abilities. That's what that's the headline, and you go underneath it, and it's like, geez, I mean, all of these superhero characters have essentially the same. Like, if you combine all of their comic book runs together, they have all the same powers.
Yeah.
There's like, whatever, Amazing Stories number 3, this superhero was able to, jump over an entire building that never showed up again, or whatever.
They've got like transportation and weaponry and things like that, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think there was even like some kind of Spider-Mobile.
Was there? Oh,
for Spider-Man.
Yes.
He had some kind of corny car or something.
Yeah. Because I think my son has that toy.
Oh, lovely.
He does. He also has they've got these Lego mini things that the minifigures are even more miniature because the legs are short, and he's got like a helicopter in that.
Oh.
All right.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of, a spider copter.
I was looking at a picture of it, and my kid was showing it to me. And I was like, what is that? And he's like, that's Spider-Man's vehicle. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, it's a helicopter. Yeah. How do you not know this? I'm like, I've never seen Spidey in a
Well, why would Spider-Man need a helicopter?
No, he's fine.
He'd get up there on his own.
Well, he could get a trip with the Vulture.
Yep. Just drag you all the way up to the stratosphere.
By the way, is there any way for Spider-Man to breathe in that atmosphere way up where there's a fucking jet? Because, the Vulture had to have his mask for oxygen and stuff like that.
I don't think so, because they show the jet is pretty close to the skyline. Most of that it never really gets too far out of the airspace of New York, I don't think.
It doesn't go up any.
Well, I heard that they tested the breathability of spiders in space and found out that they could do it for about a week without air. Yeah.
Space spiders?
This was totally.
I'm definitely not going to space now because there's fucking spiders.
Well, they're long dead now.
As long as it's not within a week.
Yeah, as long as you don't go up there 7 days. And I try to get everywhere. Of course, you never do. You go out and you get out and look in the mirror, and there's usually a whole strip, and you're like, I put that razor everywhere.